A lot of my customers like weird shit. Like that's my brand. Like weird stuff that's interesting that it's not perfect. Like there's when going to Japan, Wabi Sabi is this idea. It's a term used that is basically creating stuff with flaws on purpose, just so it feels.
You are listening to the Bomb Hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bomb Hole.
That bitch is crazy.
Okay, the bomb hole. Here we go. Stony Buds, how we doing, my friend?
Doing good, dude. You know what I want to do? I want to send a shout out to Paul.
Chinatown Paul.
Looked at the camera.
Chinatown Paul's been helping us edit. Thank you, Paul. Caleb, how we doing?
Doing good. Feeling good. Glad to be here.
Just for the listeners, to let you guys know, we got Caleb Flowers in the booth. He's kind of in the shadows of snowboarding a little bit. He's kind of comes from fashion skate world. So if you guys don't know him, you're about to find out a bunch about him. Where are you from originally, Caleb?
Originally Louisville, Kentucky, so like Midwest area, and then I guess if you call that Midwest, some people call it South. Some people
dude, I'm
call
going dirty south on Kentucky.
You're going
Yeah.
south.
I'm going south.
It's funny because I can never really I could say Appalachia, I guess, too, but I just tell people, yeah.
This guy never even heard of the
Midwest.
Appalachian Trail, actually, when a couple episodes ago.
It's wild.
True story.
It's wild. But born there, grew up there, and then moved to Montana, like Whitefish, kind of Kalispell zone, like northwest Montana, and then moved down to Salt Lake probably in 2002 or 3, shortly after the Olympics. Like, I have an older brother, and it's like the spot to be. I mean, as you know, I think a lot of people are transplants, and kind of the epicenter here. So we felt like we actually we knew a kid who said he was all like hooked into the social pipeline down here that from Louisville. And so we're like, yo, this is our chance. Like all our favorite like pros and stuff are down here, and this dude knows them all. And he kind of gasses up on that. And so we came down, like packed the car, like let's do it. Like got jobs at the resort, at like the library online, and hopped in the car and drove down. And the kid didn't know anybody, like wasn't connected, and just like kind of ghosted us. And so we were like, well, we'll figure it out. And so
he
so
had
cool.
like seen him at the mountain once.
For real, yeah. He was like telling us all this stuff. Like, dude, that's insane. You know these guys.
MFM is my dog, dude.
No, for real.
We're set up.
He was like, yo, like those are all the homies. Like we go out every night. And I was like, dude, get me in. Like that's my dream. Me and my brother were like watching the videos on repeat. You know what I mean? So
at least he got you out here, though. Shit.
And that's a silver lining of it all. Is like we probably like. In hindsight, like that dude killed it for just getting us hyped to like be a part of it, because it pushed us over that edge and made that jump, So
I didn't know you'd been here since 2002. That's crazy.
Yeah, so like I said, I got a job at Park City Resort in the library, and I think it was like at that time I was in Billings, Montana, and so we didn't realize that like for people that don't live in Utah, Park City is not that close to Salt Lake. And so we figured we could live in Salt Lake and be in Park City. And so when I got a job there, once we realized like it's kind of a trek to make daily, we just landed in Park City, and my brother walked across the street and got a job at another spot, and we just kind of ended up there. So yeah, so I kind of put my roots in Park City by default. That's just where my first job.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bump into you as much, because I moved out in like 2000. I was gonna say I'm surprised I didn't see you more. Then that's crazy.
Yeah, and so that was a little bit. The tricky part for me is like trying to like expand and meet people, but like Park City's very like
you guys had a tight crew, and it's hard to leave out of there.
Yeah, and it's super seasonal too. So like I would see people every now and again, but a lot of people were just kind of passing through there for the day. So I was trying to forge relationships and do stuff like that. But it was
were
good.
The good days of Sundance too. Back
it's insane. I have some crazy stories about like, I mean, I was young. I was probably like 15. I got emancipated, moved down with my brother, so I had a lot of freedom at an early age. And
you moved out here at 15?
Yeah. So, like, worked at Blockbuster, worked at the resort, like, snowboarded every day. Like, it was a dream. It was so sick. And, but at that time, like I said, Sundance was popping off. I mean, you had Bozung and Lane filming reality shows in Park City.
Yeah,
like
reality
it was like my favorite snowboarders, and like these celebrities were like all in the same spot. And I just come from like middle of nowhere, Montana. Me and my brother were like tripping hard, like, this is insane, you know what I mean? Like, so it was really cool.
I forgot about that reality show.
It was insane.
That was insane.
Yeah, and you had Scotty wearing Celtics jerseys and stuff.
Yeah,
and
I think
it was a good
Drew's
vibe.
made an appearance in there too. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was cool.
I remember also, like back in the day, you were a sponsored snowboarder too, like Rosinal.
Really?
all that stuff.
Loosely, yeah.
Loosely, yeah.
No, I think that Rosino, like we had some friends like Pash and Hava and some really nice people looked out for me early on, and Littlest and Alex Sherman. So they kind of, and Scotty as well, those guys all kind of brought me into their circle. And that, like I said, there wasn't a lot of people up there making it happen, but those guys were. So I got lucky to be a part of that. And then, like I said, I'm into a lot of different stuff. So about the time it took me to get in, mentally I was already like out. So those two just didn't line up.
I remember back in the day, to like paint a picture for those who don't know you, I feel like it was like an MFM, like fat pants fit, like baggy vibe.
I was doing a lot of different stuff. Like, I think that also I think a lot, maybe not a lot, but at the time I was trying to find like who I wanted to film with. And it was a whole aesthetic, like action sports and a lot of things are a lot of marketing. And so once I grasped that, like, okay, if you want to market yourself towards this filming crew, like this is the vibe kind of, And so I was constantly trying to figure out what that was, but I was also getting irritated because it didn't feel like any of them were me. So it was kind of like this feedback loop of like, I'm going to wear this, but that's not really my vibe. And hitting this. So,
some people definitely get into that, and they get stuck, and then that's when they end up seeing them in a different style a couple of years later. Cause
totally.
They're just like, I don't know.
I mean,
shape
I was just down to
shifters.
get with the crew.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens in skateboarding. I mean, Chris Cole, you look at people like Corey Duffel, like a lot of people, it was really smart to mold that. And then they were able to evolve over time and find their own way. And for me, I just didn't have that timing didn't work out where I had that long of a leeway to like get in and then be like, okay, I'm a slowly take my audience to what I'm actually into. I was kind of like, yo, I need to make some money and figure out what the best,
Did you have that like eye for fashion way back then?
I was definitely into it.
Yeah.
I think at that time it was like, it was weird. It was like everything comes back to like skateboarding or music. So I was so young. I was still like trying to figure out what I was into, like copying a lot of stuff. I was like mashing stuff together. So I was definitely into a lot of different things. Like I still like constantly picking up new stuff.
It's crazy how music is the influencer for so much.
Yeah. You listen to E Code, you listen to like the XXX.
It's going to influence the whole brand direction,
totally.
the whole fashion designer and everything. It's insane.
It's cool. And so I think where I'm at now and then I think it's just kind of been a lot of these different things and trying new stuff. And it's really like a whole vibe of, okay, like, and it definitely gives you more appreciation for things like the forum team, shorties, like the riders are sick, but the people, even Tech9, like the people putting on that vibe, like it's a whole organization that's like putting out this vibe that whether they know it or not are like affecting kids everywhere. Cause they see something in that. So that's really cool.
We didn't realize that at Tech9 at all. And we were just purely music driven.
Yeah.
Our whole direction. You know? Until you get a little older, though, you don't realize that, whoa, you're actually influencing these kids.
Oh, tons, yeah. And not even just the kids, but the whole direction of the industry and how it's going. And I would say even, I run into people now, like there's a dude in Canada who we were both in the Tech9, like, 10 years ago, and he's a rep for a bigger kind of fashion company, and we'll still vibe out on like, yo, do you remember that jacket? Or like, what's that rail you hit? And so that's this cool kind of commonality that not everybody can have that I maybe took for granted 10 years ago, but now I'm like, that's so sick.
Yeah, now you think back and those connections
that guy,
last.
Yeah, I'll be in Paris and be like, that guy knows that there's a kinked rail in Salt Lake, and we talked about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's just crazy.
That's pretty dope.
So it's cool.
When I think back to my earliest memories, you were working at the Click in Park City. Do you think that early retail job kind of like forged your direction to where you're going? Absolutely.
I literally owe everything. Not everything, I might be your ass, but I owe a lot to Josh. There's a gentleman named Josh Kaufman who owned. It was called the Click Worldwide.
Click was dope.
Yeah, and he took a lot of risks and he was forging his own kind of thing and was taking just doing cool stuff and taking his influences, but more importantly, he was giving me a lot of leeway, everyone that worked there a lot of leeway to try to find it, and I learned a lot. Because I had a lot of like responsibility and like from buying to reps, he was hooking me up. And so, just for people, there was do you remember Krista Moroge?
Mm-hmm.
Krista was the first one that put me on with that whole thing. And, she was great. So that was like a huge door, and her and Josh I owe a lot, but I think forging the skate shop talk, like even from this conversation now, like having this and rapping out has been something I use every day. And that all came from like working in the shop and being like, yo, like, how was it? Like, you guys grabbing food after? Like,
shooting the shit at the shop.
Be like, we're from out of town. We're going to go up tomorrow. Where should we go? Like that kind of thing is like, it's really cool. But it's off in
Especially
the
Park
shop.
City, you got a lot of people coming in that need direction
Totally.
from you,
Totally.
You're their only outlet or else they're lost up there.
Yeah, so I owe that whole vibe a lot, and Josh and that whole thing, and it was cool. But that definitely was like the catalyst to a lot of this stuff, to be like, one, I can do it, but two, I know how more than a lot of other people my age, because I was given a lot of opportunity early on. So it was cool.
And you have a good gauge on what people are buying too. Like my buddies that work at the shop, I'd be like, hey, how should I design my outerwear board? And they'd have like a list. You should do this, and this, because this is what people want. You're like, okay, I'm listening to you because I don't have my ears to the streets like that.
Totally.
So,
and the hardest part about that is sometimes it's not always the answer you want to get. You know what I mean? So you're like, yo, this is the shit I'm into. Like, I want you guys to be into it too. And they're like, nah, like everyone's asking for this stuff. And you're like, all right, I need to slow down. Like, I'm moving too fast. I can be into that, but I also need to know that, like, if I'm making something and the goal is to share that with people and get them inspired, like I want to give them something they want, but tweak it a little bit to where it's like a little out of their comfort zone, to where they're still ahead of the crowd. And that's like that balance. And so it took me a while to kind of figure that out too.
And
that makes sense.
You got to think a year ahead too, because some of the stuff you're working on is not going to come out for a little bit. And that's kind of crazy too. So you got to be forward thinking.
Yeah. The crazy thing that a lot of people have like the advantage they have is I was doing multi-brand, meaning like when I had a store, in Park City, and even with the Click, as far as buying, it's fun to come out with your own brand because you get to see what everyone's picking up a year, and so you have this like insider information on what's coming out. And a lot of people are like, oh, camo's in, we need a camo pant. Yeah, I went to SIA, I saw it coming out or whatever. So my favorite thing I always just go the opposite way, which would almost self-sabotage, but because of that, it was maybe more interesting, because it wasn't the same neon camo that we've seen or whatever. So
yeah, because it's funny, the industry catches wind, camo's in, and then you see 10 brands with camo pants, and you're like, whoa, damn.
Yeah, Chris has always got good camos on, though.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. You got to mix your camos up.
What I wanted to kind of jump back for our listeners that aren't familiar with your shops. Do you want to just kind of explain Mayflower and Hathenbruck to people that might not know?
Yeah, for sure. So after, I knew from a young age that like I wanted to do retail. I think one, I didn't really have much of an education, so it was a path of least resistance for me to like be in the industry. I had that shop talk thing going. I loved it. I could be around it. So without knowing the numbers or anything, I just liked the idea. And I think I wanted to do a sneaker shop. Like that was the thing, is I was into footwear, and still like footwear and outerwear, like that's my vibe. But so after the Click, it was kind of like, okay, what do I need to do? How much money do I need to save to like do my own shop, And so I opened a shop in Park City 2012 called Hathenbruck, and it was more, I didn't have a lot of liquid capital, or like, what I mean by liquid capital is just like money, like cash to start it up with.
So how'd you start it?
So at the time, there was a trend kind of hitting that was like made in USA goods. Like it was like this heritage thing. And again, I was early on it because I was able to be around it and kind of see it. But two, it was a little bit easier to not spend a bunch of money a year in advance and have to float these costs, because the stuff was being made in the U.S. I could just order it as I go. So they call it like at-once ordering.
Yeah, at once.
So I saw a window where I could sell stuff and then order more of it in, within a week, and just continue to try to build money off that, versus a lot of the other models around skateboarding and snowboarding and even fashion are built around pre-books, where you order stuff like a year in advance. So I had this kind of like marketing window to do like, okay, I can order this like Filson or Pendleton flannel, be in, sell through them, and they have more ready for me.
Would they make you go COD or?
No, most of the time, like a lot of times I'd have to hit a minimum.
Yeah.
So I would just have to time it right. And that
time it, sell out, buy more.
Yeah. So luckily that was one of the reasons I chose Park City versus Salt Lake.
You got a higher end customer.
It's higher end, and I could predict when like the business, or like when the town was going to be busy. So you just basically, it was a little bit of a poker game of like going all in before Sundance Film Festival and investing in inventory and just being like, please sell, please be snowy, and then coming back and saying, okay, just because it worked once, it might not work again, so let's just go with a little bit. So definitely mistakes made, but ultimately worked out. And so that was my way into it. And then we moved to a bigger spot because we were doing well with that.
So it was successful.
Yeah, so we did men's and women's, moved to a bigger zone, but then I still had a lease on this, like, the first shop was like 300 square feet, so super small. And And then I had a business partner, Ethan. He was like a younger kid, and kind of like Josh gave me opportunities. I wanted to like give him those opportunities. And so we teamed up, and I was like, look, you just got to like watch it during the day. We'll pay for stuff. You're into skateboarding. Go to the skate park, come back. It'll work out. And we killed it. That was really good too. But we needed skate shops are somewhat seasonal, especially in Park City.
Yeah.
I knew about snowboarding and how those hard goods, ordering hard goods is a little bit more of a risk, and it's also a lot more expensive. So I didn't really want to get into that or drag Ethan into that ethos. That early on.
Smart.
Yeah, and so
It was.
Coming from Buds, now you're a smart man.
Smart move.
so we were banking on Woodward opening, and that's the year that that Park City changed hands in Vail, and so there was a lot going on. So our lease was up, and I said, you know what? He really wanted to go skate. He was from the East Coast, so we kind of said, you know what? We're good. I'll keep my shop going. If it's dope and we want to do it again, like let's do it again. If not, that's chill too. So it was more of a learning experience for both of us, but I knew sinking my teeth into the skate thing again, like I fucking love that, man. Like, so, yeah, I knew it wouldn't be too long before I kind of did it again.
It seems like, it's such a cool blend. Like you got one foot in like core skateboarding, just diehard skating. Then you got one foot in like high end fashion. And it's like this blend of, and even more like very unique, creative one-off type stuff. Like you want to describe kind of what you guys got in there?
Yeah. So, kind of my whole like kind of aesthetic is, I call it like a high-low mix, but there was this trend going on. Like everything I do, I pretty much copy people until I kind of like, I copy multiple people until I find kind of my rhythm. And then once I'm like fluent in my own language, it kind of morphs into my own. So there was a couple cool stores. There's one in Australia, one in Copenhagen.
Listen, when you say copy people, you look at some dope store, be like, I like what they're doing. Let me put my own twist.
Or say, hey, this is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing, but maybe I can do it different enough to where it's not a complete rip, but it's just derivative. And then by the time I get into it, it'll be my own thing. But like, if it's interesting to me, like I think somebody else would be into it. So I started seeing this trend where people were ordering skate stuff and still having like, high-end Nikes or high-end footwear or high-end clothing. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's something that like I would want the opportunity to go to. So I started kind of going towards that. And then we moved to Salt Lake. We ended up, my wife bought a house in Salt Lake, and I was like, you know what? Like Salt Lake is a better template and blueprint for this model than Park City. Park City is very tourist, higher, and it spoke towards me a little bit more. And the kids were like into that same idea. Park City didn't get it so much. Like they were spending money, but they didn't. It was kind of like bittersweet because I would spend an hour being like, oh, this is why this is so dope. And they'd be like, oh yeah, like we just need shoes today. Like, can we get those? Yeah. And it was cool because they were buying stuff. But at the same time, I like felt a little bit like, oh, let's do some crazy shit. So Salt Lake really grasped it when I moved down. And then that's when we started kind of going a little weirder on the fashion side and a little bit more on the skate side and doing more marketing and stuff around it. But
did you ever see that in Colorado? They had Satellite had that straight up shoe store installation. Is that what it's called?
They had installation.
So it's kind of like they were doing that mix, I guess, too, and it was working for them for a bit.
My wife went to school in Boulder, and when I was like way into it, I took a suitcase out, and I think went to installation. I bought like Todd Jordan Blazers. I bought like all this stuff, packed it up, and brought it back. Like I was way into sneakers.
Sick. You have a sick sneaker collection or what?
I did. I'm kind of on my vibe these days is like pretty basic. Like I'm pretty pedestrian as far as like everything I'm into. Like I'm really into the conversation more than I am.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I was into the flex. So I was like, oh man, I gotta have the dope shoes. I gotta collect them. Like it's a whole vibe. And now it's just like, yo, the vibe's dope, but like the people that make it are like, that's the real vibe. Like you want to like go and grab a cup of coffee with them and see what their inspirations are. So I get way into that.
I am in no means a sneaker collector, but in '99 I bought those black and yellow Killer Bee Wu-Tang
Those are
Nikes.
sick.
But before they were the Nike limited editions.
Yeah.
Found them in my closet 2 weeks ago, mint.
Yeah.
They were 2 Gs right now.
Yeah, those are.
Put on, I'm like, damn, that's fun too. They've barely ever been worn.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow.
That's the coolest thing about like skateboarding, snowboarding. I mean, all that is it's kind of revolution. So some people will talk shit on it, being like, we already went through this. I love it because, and you guys have probably seen this too, is we're in the kind of the zone where a lot of the things we grew up with, the timeline is fitting to where like, yo, it's coming in and like, I had the real versions, but these ones are tweaked a little bit and it's kind of nostalgic. So I really embrace that. And it's fun to see. It's fun to see kids interacting in a new way too and be able to drop a little knowledge and be like, I had those. Let me show you this photo. Yeah.
A lot of the trends, they just come full circle
Yeah, they
like 20
always
years
do.
later.
Yeah.
Buds has seen the circles like 4, 5, 6 times now, probably.
It's true, dog, and that's why I got
like
some shit worth
early-
$2K in the closet right now. Dog. Anybody wants to buy those, hit me up.
Yeah.
Drop me a DM.
You know what I'm going to hit before it's too late?
Oh, name that video.
Name that video.
Oh,
How
man.
you feeling? You feeling confident? You feeling confident?
Man,
What?
I hope so.
What band's on your T-shirt?
Oh, it's Depeche Mode.
It is. That
Oh,
guy looks
shouts.
a lot like Bob Plum from back here.
I got the Bob. It might be. Wasn't
It
he in
does look
Depeche
like
Mode?
Bob.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know he was a lead singer of Depeche.
Yeah.
Bob
It's his
Pl-
dad's Mike. Yeah.
All right, I'm taking us away. Yeah, we gotta hit this because sometimes we almost forget. So, all right, I'm just gonna jump right in to the first song. I felt like it was like you and I are from the same era, so I kind of tried to. I don't know. We'll see. Here we go.
It's Mikey. Yeah, that's an easy. The best. What does he say?
I
The-
love that he knows that.
the
That's
be-
dope. dude.
Yeah. The beginning of that. We say at the beginning of that part? There's like this crazy intro before his part. It's like some lady's voice or something. I forget. It's
like
got
a
like a wild intro. It's so
long
sick.
intro. There's like a fan and there's all kinds of stuff going. Like it's like misty and weird and artsy.
It's not Red Red Wine, is it? Before his part.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but fucking amazing part. Mikey's dope.
That's sick.
See, he's still got the
Classic
roots
part.
in snowboarding,
Yeah.
even though he's in the other stuff.
Yeah.
He's still
and
can
he's
come.
all, that's easy.
Yeah.
The best part is when he like holds his wrist. He like hurts his wrist or something. He's like
Yep.
walking out holding because we all been there. We're like, fuck, like my wrist. But
He has a bunch of bails.
Yeah, it's insane. That part's so sick.
Okay,
I nailed it.
You did.
Yeah,
Good
you nailed
job.
it.
That was.
Good
I
job.
feel like that was an easy one though too. So.
Well, I didn't know your gauge. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's all good.
didn't know where you were at.
Understandable.
So this one's for the fans. You guys know how it is. Comment on the Instagram photo of
People
Caleb.
still ask where do I put it? First post.
The post of Caleb's face.
Yeah.
Comment the
first
song.
post
No-
we do.
All right, we appreciate you guys. We're hitting it. It's quick.
That's a quick one, dog.
It's a timeless one. Okay, well, thank you guys for playing another round of Name That
I
Video
don't got
Part.
that second one. It's too quick.
Yeah.
All right, I'm excited about what we're talking about because I'm fascinated by this stuff. And, you know, in your shop, I know we're kind of jumping around chronologically, but like you had those crazy Nikes that were like almost like flaky paint or
Yeah,
kind
they-
of deals.
yeah.
And like I guess you said, you know, to me, I guess I don't really understand it, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I'm not in on the high end fashion. I don't necessarily get it. But you said something earlier before you sat down. It's like it's more about being interesting than good in some ways. And like, you want to evolve on that?
Yeah. So it's tough because it's like the conversation's continually going, and not everybody agrees with me on this, which is awesome. But for me and kind of my start into all this, I when I was younger, there wasn't really like kind of a mentor and like fully on how to make a product or how to do it. So you think going into it, whether it's a skate brand, snow brand, fashion brand, product, doesn't matter, that everything is done from 0 to 100% in one factory. You think that one brand is all made in one factory and just comes to you in a box and you sell it. And then you start to peel back the layers of the onion and you realize like, oh man, like they're using a bunch of different factories to build out this comprehensive idea of what a brand is. And then you peel back another layer and you're saying, well, these factories that they're going through, a lot of the same companies are going through the same factories and they're building the same product. They're just modifying it, but they're modifying it before it comes to them, but it's just a blank. So whether it be shoes or they're saying, I don't have enough money to make something from zero, like a new shoe silhouette. So let's take an existing skate silhouette and then make it a different color and then put our logo and then do a different tongue because
The first question when you go to a factory,
Yeah.
what do you got for house molds?
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
That's how you're going to save some money. Yeah.
Totally. And so then the real creative thing is that's the true creative thing, is to be resourceful with the tools you're given and then make it your own and make it cool enough. So once I started bringing in my favorite companies, I started realizing like they're not as good as I thought, which one was bumming me out, but two was super inspiring because I was like, whoa, like if they can do it and they're continually evolving. So like you think that your favorite brand has figured it out. They've mastered what they're doing, and some have. But for the most part, you're buying a part of their process as they're getting to better product. It doesn't have to be perfect 100% when you buy it. It's probably going to be better by the second or third. I mean, even like an Apple iPhone, it's like they probably could have came out with the iPhone 5 when they brought us 3GS, but then they wouldn't have anything to improve on. So knowing that, when I wanted to design stuff, it was like, okay, it's how creative can I get with an existing product, and how can I touch on it to make it my own, to make it interesting. And that's what those Nikes were. So like that was something that I was really, I mean, still I'm way into Nike. I'm way into all footwear. And I hadn't seen that particular silhouette of that shoe is crazy because it takes a lot of different molds. It's like 300 different molds to make this new type of Air Max. And I thought that just from a design perspective was super interesting. Yeah. And so I kind of just started messing around, being like, oh, how can I make my own? And then from that was scaling this idea of like, oh, this is interesting enough. And then it just got picked up and kept running with it. And so we want to do more stuff like that.
What exactly did you do to that shoe?
So those are all
particular.
Yeah. So these guys, they take an enzyme dip. Yeah. So a lot of times with shoes, a couple of my favorite designers, there's a designer named Margiela who is known for just painting shoes. He paints a military, this style of shoe the company produces. It's a military army trainer, but it's painted.
I've seen these guys on YouTube that go nuts doing that. And it's sick.
Yeah, and so the difference between like a shoe customizer and Margiela, this world-renowned designer who's everyone's favorite, is the fact that he's able to scale it and he's done it long enough. The kid that's airbrushing his shoes in his garage is still dope, but he did one pair. He didn't do 1,000, and that was the difference. And so that's what I really wanted to touch on is like, what makes you different is being able to scale something and give it to more people.
That makes sense.
And that's what was challenging to me, but I thought, you know what, if other companies can do it, like we should try. And what's my breaking point? And so with that Nike, it was enzyme dip to be like that white color, and then we produced it and put it out.
So the enzyme dip like bleaches it out.
Yeah, bleaches it out, and then the whole thing's painted. And
they didn't have a shoe that was that colorway. That's sick.
No, because it's kind of really hard to do with the manufacturing process. So that's why
you had it dipped yourself. At your
yeah. No, I do all my. So that's kind of the interesting thing is that a lot of the stuff I'm doing is getting more popular.
Shit went crazy, dude. These shoes, right?
Yeah, I saw them. I looked them up, and that shit is sick.
And I just think it's cool because it's like a little bit different. And
what'd you add the red hit with?
Oh, dude, I just the whole thing. Yeah,
yourself.
all of them. So
and basically now no one else has these, and you have enough to put out, and I'm sure it makes it sought after and special.
And it's bittersweet because after you do a lot of pairs, you start to realize like, wow. Scaling it is a lot harder than you think, but when you do it, you're like your immunity's built up, your threshold's built up, and so then the conversation goes, well, like if I make this different, so it's not so hard, I can probably do a couple thousand pairs, and then you find yourself in this situation.
That's a lot to do by yourself, though.
It is, and lacing. I mean,
dude, I laced some shoes this morning. Took me 30 minutes.
So I'm saying.
Phil loves attacking those
and
things.
And then Phil just ripped the laces out, his dog.
And so, so that was like products like that I get super inspired by. We did a jacket.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, not to jump ahead.
I love it. Let's talk about it.
Because like I said, my passion's outerwear.
Wait, one last question on the shoe.
Yeah.
Now, what if Nike sees what you did and they're like, that's doing well, and then they just bite it?
That's okay. Like I said, cool. I copy everything, so I don't covet.
And it's almost a nod to you, like, damn, okay, you did something we didn't think of.
And on that, my whole ethos, like, of things I believe, and this changed. So when I was younger, there was a lot of pressure to be original, like whether you're snowboarding, whether you're photos, whether you're designing stuff. And so I constantly felt like I didn't have a big idea that was going to, like, change the world or be the coolest shoe design or anything. It's like a lot of stress. So I never started building something because I couldn't find the big idea, and I'd spend a lot of time looking for it.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing, like, basically everything that I'm using, snowboard, skateboard, it's all derivative from something that came before it. So in my mind, nothing's really original. Like, everything's full mixtape. Like,
well, especially by this day and age, right?
That's what I'm saying. So I love the idea. Once I realized that, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't have to design, even like, I mean, even our DNA, we're copies of our moms and dads. Like, you look at Henry Ford, all that stuff he just put together. So all these things that we're using that changed the course of history, the iPhone, all that stuff, it's just combining parts and putting together. So I started to stop trying to, like, reinvent the wheel and was like, yo, what am I into and how can I combine them all? So if I'm into skateboarding, snowboarding, and fashion stuff, let me put those together. And then if I'm into a little DIY, that's my spin that makes me different, and putting out stuff like that. So As I start doing that, I have been copied and knocked off, but it's kind of dope because
That's a compliment.
Totally. And even when you try to go knock it off, they do it different than I do. Like
Yeah.
I literally, I should show you, I have a design of a sweatpant that has been knocked off and it's the same, but it's not. And I'm like, damn, I kind of want a pair. It's like when Chappelle knocked off Prince and Prince put the album with Chappelle on it.
Yeah, right.
It's like, that's the type of shit that I get way into. And I love it because I think it promotes creativity and it promotes dialogue, which ultimately is the product, not whatever you're making. So,
Yeah.
So I like that.
The thing I think's cool too with Hathenbruck is if you look at your shop, it's like you have your staples, you have your sweatpants and your footwear, but then you come with some wild, like you had the hard drive, or
yeah.
the
Data dump.
the data dump,
Data.
Or whatever,
and then
big
you have
data.
like some crazy random ideas, like these really forward-thinking ideas that are like out on a whim. And I like that blend of like the staple, but then we're gonna like throw some shit at a wall and see if it sticks and get creative. Yeah.
I mean, you guys, like, I love all that stuff, and more than anything, I hate being boxed in. So, and it's really hard, especially when you're trying to promote something. So, I mean, even like you got like doing the podcast, doing all this stuff, everyone wants to they want something that's easy to figure out. And my biggest thing is trying to be harder to figure out because it's really complex. Like life's
Copy.
complex in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
Yeah. So, so once I start doing skate stuff, people are like, oh, it's a skate brand. And once I start doing fashion stuff, they're a fashion brand. And now I'm like, oh, I'm doing this weird data thing. They're like, oh, I think it's like,
Are
I
you
think
a tech brand?
Or they're like, yeah. So they're like, he's a content creator or something. And
Content creator.
And so the whole thing is like,
And that was more to inspire people. Like, I like all this stuff. Let's put it together.
so what I think, again, it all comes back to like what I think's dope for me. And then I try to give that to other people and see if
Yeah.
they like it as well. So
And designers sit all day and they're like, this is dope. This is dope. And you got to get your folder together. And I guess you're sharing that
yeah.
process with the world, which is cool.
Yeah, and what I was finding is like a lot of times when you like create something or like you start cataloging all this stuff, whether it be like photos or videos or ideas, you kind of start to realize like, damn, I compiled a lot of it. And what I was finding on Instagram is I was trying to create new stuff, but the algorithms of social media kept pushing me towards stuff that I already knew I liked. So like I know I'm into skateboarding. It's cool you're showing it to me, but how am I supposed to be inspired by stuff like that? I need something to kind of like shock my system to inspire me to make something for skateboarding or
That's
snowboarding.
sick.
And so it's kind of this closed loop. So I started finding like inspiration from like 1950s tractor design, like weirdo YouTube videos, like stuff that made me feel something. And I was like, damn, like I'm just going to put this together because it's different than what's on Instagram, which is a lot of these viral videos and stuff. Nothing wrong with that.
They want to figure you out and make it so easy that you're like sick.
They want to figure you out so
Yeah.
they can sell it to advertisers, being like, you need a skateboard
We
kid.
know what this guy likes.
You're a skate brand. These are the skate kids. So I constantly was like, well, that's cool. That's marketing. That's fine. But like, how can we go the opposite direction? And so I think that there'll be a trend of privatizing that data now that everyone knows who they're inspired by. Saying, hey, look, we film snowboard videos or we make this or that. This isn't just a video. It's a whole vibe. So this is photos from the trip. This is the music we edit to. Matter of fact, this is the timeline on how I edit the video. So you want to get into snowboard filming? Here's a template. You don't want to start
You
a
would
brand?
include that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, so this one's got like lease, like how I write a lease for a business. It's got a
Damn.
spreadsheet.
No way. I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
that.
So
we
you're doing another one.
yeah. So the idea
Sick.
is I did two, and then I ran out of shit, and like I put
Took
a
some
lot-
time and
yeah. And
dude,
so-
how to do a lease? That's sick though, man.
Yeah, so basically it's like a creative toolbox for things that I would want to get into when I was younger. So it's
Yeah.
like, how do you make music? Like, what do they use? And even if it's just, and then weirdo stuff, like that's what, it's like a zine all
Yeah.
on the thing. But we had
What do you sell that for?
so we did $12. So my idea was like, if kids will buy music for $12 and I'd buy music $12, I bought albums that suck.
That much knowledge for $12 is insane.
Yeah, and I think it's accessible too. Like sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like people get it and they're like, I don't know what the fuck I just bought. But now they download it, they got to
And now
delete
they
that shit
start
off their
looking
desktop.
through it,
So at
yeah.
least they're like, it maybe means a little bit more because it's on their computer. It's not eternal scroll. They have to interact with it. They have to delete it, and maybe they'll keep it longer because it
Or
took
they'll
more to get
pick
them there.
What they like and kind of build that folder. It's almost like a mentor thing from your brain, I guess. I don't know. That's fucking cool.
The cool thing is bringing along, like the last one I did, I brought like people that I thought might have cool point of views that weren't mine, because it's not all about like my shit's pretty one-sided, but I'm like, this dude lives the other side of the world. He's probably into some stuff that I don't even know about. Let's get him on, bring his desktop.
He definitely is, right?
And to be honest, there was some weird shit that came through, but it was interesting nonetheless. It wasn't shit that I already knew, like, oh man, we've seen this spot before or whatever. So
it's almost like some degree of education aside from like formative schooling.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, I just want to be educated in this weird little like epicenter,
Especially
and
being a self-taught person like you are. That's really cool.
I think that it might be something that, I mean, I like it because also as you start a brand, you realize shipping right now internationally is super expensive. So it was also a way for me to share my point of view from Salt Lake City, Utah, with people in Amsterdam, people in New Zealand, people in all over the world that they could download and have immediately versus sending a hoodie. And so it was a way for them to interact with the brand and find some sort of similar to watching a snowboard video or something, you know, like find that commonality and a little bit more. And a lot of times they'll hit me up after and be like, yo, that shit was so sick. Like I felt this photo, or like that video, so good. Are there any
They're
more?
going to latch on and feel some emotion from something.
Totally.
So
Just
cool.
opens dialogue.
What was the story with these $600? Was it a $600 shovel that you guys were selling? Did I read that
Yeah.
somewhere?
So that was a bad attempt. So wasn't a bad
Not
attempt.
to jump around. Sorry.
No,
it's good. That's a good subject.
I heard it was big. It was chrome and
It was cool. I still have it. And actually I showed up to Rail Gardens with it last year.
$600 piece on the scene.
It's like, so I was struggling trying to combine, but when I was in Park City, combine like all my passions together, and I might have been looking a little too deep and too literal at what I was into. So I'm like, oh, expensive stuff. Now I have to have something that says like snowboarding. And so I'll be like, expensive shovel. That's like, and I thought it was cool. It's more of a sculptural piece.
Crucial tool out there.
Is it a little bit more of a labor-intensive tool? But I like it.
So it's one piece, and
Was
it
it
was
heavy as shit?
It was for like feed and seed. It was like
Oh, okay.
like
The
NSF
toughies.
approved.
Those are the toughies.
Yeah,
They're like
But it
the
was a metal
plastic
one.
type shit.
all metal.
Oh, it's all
metal.
Oh, okay.
Unibody.
Was
yeah,
it chrome we talked
it's chrome. I'll bring it. You guys should maybe
Dude,
find a
yeah, I
zone
wish you
for
would
it.
have brought that.
I'll
Chrome-
mount that bitch on the wall.
Dude, chrome Tuffy in the scene?
Yeah.
That would be
Buds,
dope,
it's
yeah.
still is it still for sale?
I think it's a donation. I think I could
Well,
donate.
I was going
that
to say, I don't know if I
spot.
could afford a $600 shovel.
It's pretty crazy. It's
would-
heavy too.
It'd still
so
be shiny. Buds doesn't use his shovel much. He'd be perfect for him.
Yeah, dude, that would be great. If it was that heavy.
it's like that workout.
Yeah, I'll
vibe,
be like, this thing's
Yeah.
heavy, man. I got like 3 scoops in
Yeah.
me, boys. 3
No, it's-
scoops.
my neighbors are all like, "What's he doing?" So,
Did you sold a couple, though, huh?
So one.
That's sick.
So one kept one.
Who was the one person that got the shovel just a homie? He was like, dope.
It was a guy from Backdoor Deli. Actually, he was across the way from me, and
He wanted
he
to chip some
shreds.
ice. Oh, he shreds,
And
too.
he nothing really in his shop communicated to him but that shovel. So like
$600.
whatever it was, and I think we might have even worked out a deal where I got some sandwiches and we traded.
Dope,
but he
dude.
might have got wholesale on that. But the whole vibe was like, let's try something different.
Yeah.
But
And
it was
that's
cool.
just kind of the stuff you do, huh? Is just
it was
try
weird.
different shit.
The thing I think I'm like completely fascinated by this because I personally do not understand it.
Yeah.
Is in that world the creating the hype, like the people lined up out the door for a piece of footwear, or like paying how you're able to charge a lot for a hoodie or the $450 jacket. Like let's
Yeah.
talk about that because from a
think-
normal consumer, they don't always understand that
My
that
knowledge
process.
of fashion was Derelict in Zoolander.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me
That's
and Bud
about, that's
about
about
the
as
same.
far
Yeah.
as it goes.
I think like fashion as a whole, I think it's not that hard to understand when you realize that like we have favorite skateboarders or we have favorite basketball teams or sports teams. Fashion's very much like that for the younger generation where maybe they didn't have that same presence on like who their favorite skateboarder or musician almost. But you really are trying to define, when you're younger, you're trying to define yourself of like, what am I about? Who speaks to me? What's my brand? And so the fashion thing is like, okay, this guy wears all black. Like I wear all black. And he's kind of got this ominous vibe. Like I'm into that. So it's really like finding someone that
You relate to.
that defines your image, and it can change. And then a lot of it's almost like sponsors where people will combine multiple designers that really speaks to them. For me, and speaking to the hype thing, I think a little bit of finding those designers, not so much about the product, even though expensive price tag comes along with it. It's more about believing what those designers believe in. So if they believe in wearing all black, I believe in wearing all black. Therefore, it's $700. It's for the cause. It's for the vision. I'm spending $700 for these shoes. So, and I'm that same way. Like, I'm actually pretty frugal when it comes to some stuff, and then other stuff, if I believe in it, like
drop
go
the
all
money.
in. There is no price. Like I'm so about this cause and this person, and I'm gonna get them because I don't spend money on other stuff. But this I'm passionate about. So I think that knowing that early on, and when you try to produce stuff, it's like I think there was a handful of kids or people that really wanted to challenge the status quo on being like, you can skate but also be into fashion. So much so where now it's lopsided to where like I'm actually really into slat wall, core, almost like early 90s vibe.
Like you said, it all comes
It goes
back
full circle.
around.
Yeah, you push too hard one way, it comes back. The pendulum comes back.
Instead of the installation look, it's slat wall.
Yeah.
And whatever.
And so I think a lot of people are like, damn, he's like the fashion guy, but he's like, look, he's wearing all that old shit. And so like those DVSs are sick. So I think that
I design those.
Yeah.
Number one selling shoe in Zoomies.
Yes. So I think it's cool in that thing, but the fashion thing, it was really just you get bored of stuff and you get into other stuff. The price tag of it is the one thing that I didn't really like as much. On a business standpoint, I liked it because it was making me more money, but I didn't like how exclusive it was. It wasn't that inclusive, and I would see kids that aligned with what I was into, and we connected on the same like ideals of like doing different shit and like it being more interesting, but yet they were restricted for the price tag, and that bummed me out. So that's why I kind of started to tweak it a little bit.
Is fashion working under the same margins, or is it a bigger margin because of the price?
So the fashion thing is about the same. So
About the
like
same.
it's just the minimums are a lot higher. So I was spending like a lot of money on shipping and ordering this stuff. And I would just try to picture it as like, okay, this is my schooling.
Like what kind of minimums for a shop like yours?
So I would spend a lot of money. So like, let's see, like something like a high-end designer, low-end minimum would be like 15 grand for a season.
Damn.
And then shipping would be like 8 grand. So you're in, but this is the best
That's
part.
some cheddar biscuits.
That's
right
some
there.
biscuits.
yeah.
That's
Some heavy
expensive,
biscuits.
especially for a shop in Salt Lake.
And that's just like one brand. So then you're combining these. And so you get real good at being like, and so a lot of times I would get in there and be like,
They'd be like, "You want my designs? 15K."
they'd be
Minimum.
like, you're in Utah? We never heard of you.
Yeah.
And then what would happen is,
What goes on in Salt Lake?
yeah,
Are
they're
you
like,
legit?
how bad do you want it? You're like, fuck, man, it's my only time. They might not invite me back if I say no.
Yeah.
And so you
And
start,
these are people you respect and look
Totally.
up to.
and then you start to be like, oh, like, yeah, maybe we can figure it out. And then you'd go to ship stuff and like, so it's super stressful.
If it doesn't sell, you're taking a risk.
Totally. But so what I started doing is, this is what's crazy, is I was getting all this expensive stuff, and I realized like, holy shit, half of these kids, like some of them know what it is, half of them don't, but have the means to buy it, but they wanted to say Hathenbruck on it. And so I started
I was
printing
reading about this.
So I started printing on, like, I would just buy shit and I was like, damn, some of this stuff. I was
Designers
like,
didn't care.
well, I just hit the minimum. So if they
You own
cared,
it.
I was like, I just hit your minimum and jump through your hoop. Like,
Time to jump
you're going
through
to tell
mine,
me no.
dog.
Yeah. And so at that time I was like, you know what? Like, what am I going to do? So then I started
Genius.
a little
That's
fast
dope.
and loose. And they also didn't care because it's not like it was LA or New York. They're like, he's in Utah.
Yeah, but-
No CEOs going to Utah or whatever. But every now and again I'd hit him up, like, yo, come through. So it was this cool thing. But
Did
I think
anyone
taking
walk
those
through,
risks.
see it, and be like,
Oh,
damn.
totally. I mean,
They
and
were stoked, or were they like, "Whoa, bro"?
I
hey,
think,
man.
yeah.
So essentially, you're rebranding their stuff for the layman.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Like you're taking their product, cutting them into shorts, and then rebranding them or something like that.
which is exactly what
Throwing
they're
a
doing
cut
from
and
the
sew
factory.
label.
yeah.
Which is what they're doing from
Yeah.
the factory. So
Okay.
they're buying. So this is why it's so interesting, because I was seeing that the companies I was buying from were going to factories in China that all their competitors would go to. They'd buy the same block crew neck sweatshirt, sew their stuff in. I would get it. They'd be like, "You can't sew stuff in." I'd be like, "That's what you did."
That's what you did, bud.
And then it would be this full thing where we would start there and we continue to push it.
Did you come up with this? Is this something?
Like I said, the whole idea, not really. People have been doing it with vintage and stuff like that forever. I just, at the time, I didn't really have any other options.
You had to sell it. You took a commitment.
And at the same time, if I'm going to go all
Or
the
a
way.
risk, I mean.
And I was really enjoying the fact that, like, man, like, these are some of my favorite designers, but I feel like I could maybe push this and make it a little bit sicker if I cut this sleeve off. And at the same time, it was this giant risk, because I'm like, what if I fuck it up?
Once you cut it,
but what if I fuck it up? And so then you're like, well, dude, I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm actually going to make it better, because
Yeah.
like these kids are coming and they want it to be touched on. So then you really commit to your branding. The people make it. So like,
where did you get the name Hathenbruck?
so there's a basin in like in between Ashley and Wasatch National Forest called Hathenbruck Basin.
Sick.
It was named after this guy who actually used to have a general store in Salt Lake. And so at the time, me and my buddy Patty were like hiking up there, and I actually couldn't think of anything.
It's a dope name.
I couldn't think of
name.
anything.
It's like,
yeah.
non-binary name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those names that instantly kind of
Yeah.
speaks to you. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, a lot of people like Heathenhagen. Like, what's this thing called?
Heathenhagen.
Yeah, and you're like, dude, it's whatever you want it to
Yeah,
be.
whatever,
You guys a
dog.
skate shop? We are, dude. Come in. Yeah, you guys sell like designer. And so that mash of people from different backgrounds, like all in one spot, is the most entertaining thing. Like we've had everybody from like Roseanne Barr in there with like skate kids and like designer fashion kids, like all.
She lives in town, huh?
Used to. She went to
Used
East,
to,
yeah.
okay.
But I mean, all types of people like that, and that's what actually makes it is just that spontaneity of like, this is so weird, I can't understand it.
That's
The thing
really cool.
I want to back up on too. That's kind of cool in that whole thing. Listening to you talk, it's almost like there's two sides of people that are into the higher end design stuff. It's like there's some people like when you talk about it, it's about the culture or like the people that really inspire you. But then you have a large portion of the customer, it's a flex.
The flex,
It's a flex. Like, yo, this shit was fucking $800, bro. You know, right?
True.
And I think
huh?
I think that I mean, you're absolutely right, and that's a lot of the industry. And I actually I don't look down on them because I was that person. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it is
They keep you in business.
yeah, and a lot of people too. Like when you come from a place that like you're trying to demonstrate that you're doing the right thing and you're having small wins. One of the ways to do that is to wear expensive clothes or to wear designers or show people around you like, hey, I'm on the right track. And so I think it comes from a very positive place, but then it turns very negative almost to like a pretentious zone. And so I was trying to walk that balance and still do. But I think that sometimes it's hidden under the guise of like, oh, it's expensive fabrics or, oh, it's the design. And it's a little bit of that, but a lot of it is that's just the way that industry's built. And so I always tell kids that they should know that like, if you like something that's expensive, you shouldn't not like it because it's expensive. You know what I mean? If you like it, get it if you can afford it and you
Yeah.
pay your bills. And yeah, your friends that buy skate shit might talk shit on it, but you wanted that, doesn't matter. Like you're passionate about it for whatever reason. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what reason, but you wanted that, so go get it. But you shouldn't be buying it to look down on other people or flex, but that's so much of like
There-
Like,
there's
our
some,
culture.
there's some of
look
that
at
out there. Yeah.
Bentley, why do you buy a
Skating
Mercedes Benz?
Yeah.
Why do you buy
Yeah.
a Beamer? It's
Yeah.
the same shit
Yeah.
to a degree, you know?
And so my whole vibe is that high-low mix. So like if you're going to buy expensive stuff, do it in a way that makes it interesting. Don't do it in a clone way where you're doing it to be a package. Take that and mix it with something interesting in your own way. And it's very much like snowboarding or skateboarding where you're like, damn, he skated that spot different. Or it's like just making it interesting is so much more important than it being considered like good or like perceived as good because he's got all the cool brands on or whatever. So I like that whole idea. But
Yeah,
dope.
it's cool. I
Yeah.
like was in Japan a few years back, and I remember we were like, there's something about the whole vibe of the store. We were at Supreme. I mean, this I couldn't really tell because the price tag. There's like yen and dollars. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's like-
and I ended up getting my credit card statement, and I didn't realize I bought $400 sweatpants.
yeah.
But and all they were was just like
Yeah.
shitty champions.
Yeah, you're like,
but they
are
had a
these
couple
any different?
Supreme hits.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, you know what? I like they're sick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're just like exactly what you do. They take champion and they slap a Supreme, a little like subtle couple of them on there, and it's like,
And the
they
thing too,
sell out in 3 seconds.
yeah.
and I paid $400 for
Yeah.
it,
yeah.
and I feel okay about it.
I think too, like it's easy to feel like pretty good about it too when you're like, damn. I always come back and the kids, Supreme is an easy one because it's kind of the catalyst for the conversation. Like, oh, you have a shop? Oh, you kind of do skate? Like Supreme.
Yeah.
And so Supreme is dope just for what it's started. Wearing Supreme is not as cool as it was once before, but the fact that they're paying people to put out and continue to put out good skateboarding content, I'll always support.
Yeah.
Like anybody taking that money and putting it into something that's inspiring skateboarders, snowboarders, whatever it may be, like that's the most important thing. So when they stop doing that, I'll be like, man,
They
you
seem
guys
to
sold out.
still
But
sell out like hotcakes, even though
Yeah.
if it's not as
yeah.
cool. Or
Stussy, Supreme, like Stussy's probably the biggest one in my mind because they've been around for so long and survived so many different waves
True.
and still like are relevant that it's like this insane thing. So
yeah,
they've done a
Deadlong
really
was
good
wearing
job.
a Stussy tee yesterday.
Still sick, yeah. And they hire the right people to make it sick. The shop guys, the guys in their in-house, like they still are like doing their thing and
Part of
touching on
Supreme's
stuff.
thing too is they don't make that many of each item, huh?
I don't
commodity,
think so, yeah.
commodity based,
Yeah.
where you're gonna
Yeah.
sell out. Yeah,
And then someone will buy it. They're the only one who has it. Then they upsell it on
Yeah,
eBay.
resellers,
And,
yeah.
resell it.
Yeah.
that makes sense with the hype as well. Then to keep this conversation moving forward, I really, again, am fascinated by the forward thinking idea of the vending machine. Can you
I mean,
elaborate on that?
Your shop was fully successful,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're cruising.
but you closed down.
Yeah. So
Like right now, it sits empty.
usually,
Or not yours anymore. I don't know.
yeah, I might get it back though. I might do something else with it. So, so kind of my whole thing is, I keep
But
saying
fully
that.
successful.
Fully. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we're selling stuff. And actually, what's
He's
crazy,
making some bisque.
Biscuits.
we're
were
cleaning
being
up.
made.
I mean, not to say mistakes weren't made, but we
course.
were able to make mistakes with like minimal reason, saying, yeah, let's take some risks, but let's not go and kill
Yeah.
ourselves and do anything,
but we
irresponsible.
can agree it was profitable. Shit was good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's still,
Still,
is. Still is. It's
yeah.
Still is. Well, I mean, just because
brick and mortar.
I
right?
say, yeah, the brick and mortar. I
Yeah.
say was because you closed it down, but you took something profitable. Most people would be like, let's run with it. Let's run with it. You closed down.
And part of it's kind of, I do this a lot, which I'm still learning, but like self-sabotage. Like as soon as something starts hitting, like now would be the time to hit the gas on the shop. But I stopped short, and it kind of goes into the whole, like he talks about building hype and what does that look like. And a little bit is saying, okay.
Maybe that stopping short is building the hype.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's like, if I do another one, it's like you got to be patient, play the long game. Like Supreme didn't happen overnight. It was 10 years of being this small, shitty shop
True.
to be where it's at. And then it happened overnight. So you know that you're like really, really building this thing up. And along that way, you can pursue other passions and stuff too. So with the vending machine thing, I was like, you know what? This is an awesome idea. And I want to try it out. And I see, just to kind of back things up.
What gave you the idea?
So I love vending machines, always have. I know that there's a ton of them in Japan, so I did a Japan trip.
Sick.
And started taking photos of all these vending machines, and then it was like, could you scale this in a way and still have the same interactions I have in the store, but at the vending machine? And part of it was I was having a hard time like not being the like therapist in the store. Like I love talking to people, but there'd be times where like you'd hold court and you'd have like 10 different conversations. I'd have like 20 kids in there just sitting around and
They're
people
all
trying to
listening
shop.
you,
Yeah.
looking up to you, wondering like, what's tight? What's
Yeah, I
cool?
created this
Yeah.
thing, and they'd be like, "Yo, I want to do a brand. How do I do it?" And I love talking to them about that, but I'm like, "Yo, I got to design new stuff." So
Yeah.
there's a brand, so I know how to do it. And so
And it's cool to hear what they're thinking.
yeah, like trying to get out of the shop, but still offering kids this thing and having the opportunity to say, you know what, we can activate at this kind of community hub that's a vending machine wherever we want. So a example would be like, Chris is going to Bear. I'm going to Bear. We teamed up with this brand. There's kids that, they haven't got the opportunity to meet Chris. They don't know who I am, and they haven't even seen this product. Let's get this brand. We're going to wrap the machine. We're going to do a product thing there. And then we're going to tell them at 10 o'clock, we'll be there wrapping out. So if they want to come by, like, we're just chilling. That's an opportunity that's like part demo, part meeting your inspirations. And then if you're like, oh man, I didn't have money when I was here the first time, but I brought my dad back and the machine's still there, I can still buy that hoodie, that hat, whatever the product was. So the accessibility of it being open 24 hours and still being able to give an interaction around this vending machine is still something that like I'm trying to like do in a way that's creative. And I haven't fully figured it out yet. Like we did the vending machine drop. We've done a few different things, and it's still challenging. It's definitely not like a shop ethos, but I think if we do it enough, like to activate it at like a Woodward or Brighton or like middle of nowhere, like the coolest thing is putting it in
Middle of nowhere, like in Japan. For people that don't know, if you've never been in Japan, they got beer vending machines. They
crazy.
got hot tea in the middle of nowhere. They
Coffee
got,
vending
yeah,
machines is like coffee. Yeah.
Pretty much anything you can put in a vending machine, they got, and it's cool
Yeah.
and it's sick. And whenever you're there, you're like, man, I wish that was in the States.
So on that high-low mix and blending, this is the dream. And it's basically like one vending machine, cool, right? So let's just start naming stuff off. From an entrepreneurial side, okay, say you have a space or say you have a pop-up location. Boom, you're doing, you got merch in one vending machine that's yours. You got some stuff you teamed up with a brand with. My friend owns a water company and he's selling water stuff out. Now it's this culmination of, 14 machines of complementing brands that have an aesthetic. So it's like a food truck park. You know what I mean?
wow.
Like vending machines, a food truck or retail,
Holy
essentially.
shit. Yep.
But all these brands complement each other, and then you can sell that idea to other brands that want that culture. So let's say Billabong wants to get in and like, man, we want to be a part of that cultural food truck park that has all these vending machines. We want to wrap a machine and do a product with you. What does it look like? And that's where financially it makes sense. And that's what a lot of these shops do that subsidize the footwear wall with, Vans or whatever it may be. And they're saying, we'll pay for the whole wall. We want to do an installation or a pop-up. So it's that, but it's without the people unless they want to be there.
So do you have vending machines right now?
So I have one, and I have like.
Did you like custom make it, or you found one?
So vending machines is interesting. There's one maker in the U.S. that is kind of like the Ford. Vending machines are almost like, if you heard like John Deere and stuff, tractors, as they make their technology obsolete after 4 or 5 years, so you have to continue buying or investing in it.
Yeah.
Vending machines is much like that, where you're like, damn, this brand's sick and it's got all the bells and whistles, but within a couple of years you're upgrading, so they kind of keep you on the
moving.
So there's one brand that's like an old Ford truck, and so you can keep getting parts and stuff for it. So it's like trying to innovate and get the coolest looking machine that also will span the longest, amount of time.
Sick.
Yeah. So
And now with the COVID shit going on, some people don't even want to talk to people, so it's almost like you just
we put those
happen. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe you did it after COVID, but you did it before COVID.
Well, I got a camera in there, so I can talk to him anyways.
That's what I wanted to talk about. I've been waiting. That's genius.
Yeah,
the camera's genius. Explain the camera for the listeners.
So one, I got to watch what's going on, but two, like I want to see who's coming up. And from a marketing social media aspect, it's like, there's a movie called Big with Tom Hanks where they walk up to the machine. I saw when I was younger.
The movie's dope.
And they go up and he drops a quarter and it talks to him. So when you think about retail, you think about the whole vibe of the place. Like you walk up to the machine, if it makes a noise, like you walk up and it's like World Star, you're going to think of the machine and have this emotional attachment.
Big was from when he gets the power. That's where you kind of saw that.
Yeah, he
That's
goes
so
to like,
sick.
I forget what the genie's called, but it
it's
makes
some
a
genie.
noise. Yeah.
It has a name, and it gives him a little something. That's so sick, man.
So I thought, how can we make this vending machine this vibe of where like maybe you smell something, maybe you see something, maybe you hear something, and whatever you do, it's got to be part of that emotional attachment. So I was like, well, I've never walked up on a machine and had an experience through this, video or whatever, like filming people. So we threw the camera in there and it's fish-eyed out, so it looks like an old skate video, which is like perfectly on brand for everything I'm into. And then I'm like, that's the social media aspect right there, is people walking up to the machine like all fish-eyed out, being like, whoa, so
Genius.
Yeah.
Fucking genius.
And
So-
they can talk to you if you want.
talk to me, and it's motion censored, so I know when I got some business.
Yeah.
It hits the phone and I'm like,
Kind of like the
"Yo."
doorbell setups, I
Yeah.
imagine. That's so sick.
Yeah, so it's cool. Like I said, it's got some quirks, like obviously like making sure Wi-Fi is there, and also like since it's new, the hardest part about kind of trying to innovate something new is trying to train people on how to use it. Like a lot of people don't even know what it is. They're
You
like,
got to watch out for those chronic masturbators, too, that see there's a camera.
Is that a thing? Oh, yeah.
See there's a camera, and they're like, oh, snap.
yeah.
Those
I mean,
voyeuristic
it might go
bastards.
viral though. At
Yeah,
the same time, you
true.
might want to like sponsored post on something like that.
You know what they have at the airport? I thought about as I don't know if this is inspo too, but they have like the Best Buys that have all the
Yeah, the
they have like
headphones.
iPads and shit in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Can you swipe a credit card? I'm unfamiliar with your vending machine.
so mine's only credit card.
Yeah.
Or Easy Pay, which basically is like Apple Pay, all that stuff.
Yeah, can you like hook up Venmo to that type of shit? Or
Venmo doesn't do it yet, but like pretty much all the Android devices, or maybe they do. All the Android
It'll get
devices and
there
Apple
either way,
Pay, yeah. And then it's satellite, so it just goes 4G, 5G now, and goes straight to the satellite. So pretty cool in that aspect. Like
who
it's
stocks these if they're around?
yeah. So that's the issue is distribution.
Or you get someone to like buy one like a ATM machine kind of set up.
You
I
can
imagine.
franchise it.
franchise.
Yeah,
do
franchise.
stuff.
That's the word I'm looking for.
My dream was to put them all around and then to travel, do them like demos,
Dude.
and say, "Yo, we're in this middle." It basically the whole idea was
Cruise
for
here, let's come out.
yeah, like a town that I grew up in that didn't have a skate shop, didn't have a snowboard shop. This is they can support a red box. They can
Yeah.
support a little machine like this.
Well, now look at even Amazon.
Yeah.
They're all over the Sevis, and
Yeah.
people can go interact with that.
Yep. So
Put
now,
one right next to one
Yeah.
of those, plug it into the same spot.
so
bam.
so now that kid in Montana is like, oh man, this week these guys are coming through on a trip and they're going to be at the machine for like 2 hours. I can go and get some shit signed and maybe like skate the park with them. And that's that activation point to give that kid an opportunity, because there's only about maybe 25 kids in the town, 30 or whatever, but it's still enough to like support a little machine that couldn't support a full retail store. And
So would you then maybe the machine would move around?
the goal is to put them everywhere and then to have a distribution.
And
So
show
one
up to
guy's,
it.
yeah, so it manages inventory. So one guy can hop in a van and like stock all these, you know what I mean? And be like, okay, this one's low. We're going to do a trip.
totally
So,
attainable. Totally attainable.
yeah, it's not.
Really dope.
I got to
It's kinda
stop
cool,
and
huh?
commend you on some of those two thoughts that I wrote down. Was you described the vending machine as the food truck of retail.
Yeah.
So that
So
sentence
sick.
is like because that right there, you think like when I think vending machine, I think like bland, but you're like talking about cultural, like there's a cultural aspect to a food truck, and then also that like that sensory trigger. You know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
like that like
smells.
bling,
Yeah.
or whatever that sound or whatever that sensory trigger is. Like those two aspects of the vending machine
Totally.
are fucking genius, dude. I love it.
I just think it's more accessible too to people. Like everyone's an entrepreneur, and now trying to get into a retail spot's so expensive, and customers can't even go inside. So for this, it's like,
Oh, true. No one. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that the timing is kind of wild, but also I think just from like a realistic standpoint, if somebody's saying, hey, you know, I want a small business where I can sell my goods or whatever, like it makes a lot of sense in
Dude,
a
it
couple
makes
different
so
ways.
much
but-
sense. Yeah, the rent alone is like it's like
Yeah.
that's insane, dude.
You gotta keep chasing this down and make it.
I know that's my problem though. I got so many ideas. It's like staying
this
on
one
one.
seems like one you should really be doing.
Yeah, and I always like, oh man, this is the one. It's good though because they all lead you to another point. Like I said,
True.
I find myself, I'll get like crazy into vending machines. I'll go back and be like, yo, I want to design this jacket. Like I love designing outerwear, and so I'm constantly.
What was the jacket? You guys didn't quite explain that all to me.
Oh yeah, this one's good.
'Cause I
So-
haven't seen it.
Again, I was having a hard time making outerwear because we talked about like, for those who don't know, making outerwear, the minimums are very high, especially if
Yeah,
you're
they're
producing
crazy.
something. And outerwear I love so much, but making small batch is one of the more challenging things to do, and actually making it good. So I was able to get these blocks of the basic nano puffy from the same factory that Patagonia goes through,
Sick.
but it's the same nano puffy. So I'm
Same-
like, this
same
ain't
stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, this is dope, but like this, excuse me.
Patagucci's charging freaking $200 for the jacket. You can actually get the material and
Totally. And I'm like, but this isn't really like, this is a black jacket. Like everyone's got this same thing. So how can I make it my own? And one thing I found interesting in Park City is we're all striving for authenticity, like whether we all kind of agree to it or not. So,
Absolutely.
so I would see a lot of people that would pull up in expensive cars, but they wanted their jacket to be beat up, and they would come in and
to
rave.
show that they've been outdoors.
They're authentic. They're authentic outdoorsmen. They have but it's like, oh, it's my dad's jacket, and it's all like got holes in it, and I mean, I'm not knocking it. I like that.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
said, the
I've
high-low
heard plenty of
mix.
people say that. though.
Yeah, I'm like into that, and so I'm like, yeah, man, that's cool. And so I started thinking about denim. Like you think about blue jeans and the history of denim, and then the cultural shift of denim to wash denim, of people buying this broken in thing. And could you do that with the denim of Salt Lake City, which essentially is this staple black nano puffy jacket?
That's
and
so
what would that
sick.
look like? So I was getting these block jackets and putting tape on them and patches, and like basically getting these new jackets, cutting them, patching them back, and then giving them like a patina just to be like, this is that jacket you want that's already worn in. And so is the washed blue jeans of like a black jacket, and it resonated. People were like down. I liked it, you know.
What's
like-
something like that retail for?
so we were selling it for $450. So it wasn't. It seems kind of
$4.50 or
no.
$450?
So $450.
I knew the answer, but damn,
If
son.
people be like, I'm coming in to buy a jacket with duct tape on it, and I was like, exactly. That's why you're here. Welcome. You know.
I'll tell you what, out shooting photos, man,
Yeah.
always had to put a piece of duct tape so the
Yeah.
filling doesn't fall out because you climbed a fence or whatever you did.
Got
or-
snagged on something.
Yeah.
So that whole thing was something that I was like, if people are willing to go down this path with me, because that's a lot of what the designer stuff is. They were spending way more than $450 on. They were spending, $4,000 on this stuff. It's been overdyed,
Yeah.
underdyed, ripped apart, salvage, whatever.
So $450 is really nothing.
It was pretty accessible, yeah. So kids that were buying $800 jackets, like $450, but it was just taking that mental leap of like, I'm buying a jacket that has rips on it and
And it
tape,
worked.
and you're like, well, the one you bought last week is the same one, but it says Rick Owens versus this one that says Hathenbruck, and they're like, yeah, you're right, this one is sick, and I'm like, plus you know me. And
Dope,
and
dude.
so that was like a cool thing, and I really like that, and we'll do that again because that's like a fun one for me.
It totally
Dude,
makes
that's
sense.
sick.
People have been doing that with like jeans. Like look at women's ripped jeans. Like they're bleached and the knees are fucked up,
Totally.
and they're like twice as much.
Yeah,
so-
the factory pre-fucks them up for you.
Yeah.
You pay someone in a factory to wash it.
That person's me.
Wash it with rocks.
Yeah.
Wash it with rocks
Yeah.
in it or whatever they
Yeah.
do that treatment. And
I remember Analog had wheel wash.
Yeah.
They throw skate wheels in. That was them like pushing for like combined skateboarding with
Yeah,
like,
what can we
yeah,
do?
yeah.
It's wheel
throw
wash.
wheels in. Yeah, and that was a whole marketing thing, which I was like, I didn't know whether to
Yeah.
be mad at or like shake their
or
hand.
stuff.
Yeah.
The Analog was pretty genius. They
Yeah.
did some dope shit.
Yeah, and a lot of guys that were designing that are now like the top tier in the fashion industry, and so now I know why I liked early Analog is because I'm like I
Yeah.
still like some of those designs. So it's
I had
cool.
this leather Analog jacket that did a very small number.
I know
of
it.
The one
insane.
with the Planet of the Apes on the
insane.
inside. I still got that in my crib.
was
and I'm
expensive.
Like, I'll never. I had a buddy that linked it up for me, but that in the inside is when like the Statue of Liberty with that scene, and it's so sick. And I was just like, dude, this is the sickest thing ever.
I tell kids all the time.
Never get rid of that.
Yeah. Well, like the coolest thing, literally, like in the fashion industry, is like most of the people that are in there came from skate, snow, or music.
Mm-hmm.
Like half the people I talk to, whether it's the design side, a lot of them designed for Burton, and now they're top tier. Like it all starts. Like a lot of that culture starts in places like this. You know what I mean? And so I always tell kids, like, it might not seem that accessible from where you're sitting right now, but just like, I mean, even like with Trevor Andrew and stuff like that, like
that made that connection with Gucci was a snowboard photographer.
Yeah, like
that convinced them to be like, dude, don't cease and desist. Let's just go meet them.
I think that kind of helped me a little bit too, because once I started kind of embracing the board world side in these places that are more fashion, it gave me more authenticity. We were like, oh, but he like, we think skateboarding's cool. We think snowboarding's cool. He's like one of those people. So like, yeah, he's, versus like being a fashion dude in the fashion thing. And so once I saw it helping me, I kind of leaned into it a little bit. And
Which
was
is
like,
dope. Yeah.
Like, you see our last skate video?
Because you've made skate.
That's what I
skate
wanted
videos,
to pivot. Yeah, I wanted to pivot and talk about the fact that you've basically had 3.5, 4. We'll call it 4. Pretty much, I would say, very, very successful skate videos to go along with Hathenbruck the whole time. And so it's like
they were like labeled Hathenbruck.
Yeah, exactly. And so the whole thing is that it's like it's an interesting one from the way I look at it is, this like as a skateboarder, the skateboarding and it's incredible, it's awesome, and to me some skateboarders are buying it, but it almost seems like the consumer is more of your like, I don't know, like a college kid. I don't know who the consumer is, but not necessarily your core skateboarders, your consumer.
It's weird, man. It's to kind of start that. So when I moved to Salt Lake, I was lucky enough to like have some really good friends kind of embrace it, and a lot of them are a couple years younger than me. 2 filmers, Colt Morgan and Seamus Foster, like the most creative.
Those guys are doing the filming.
So Seamus edits it all. Colt and Seamus have filmed that whole thing, and Seamus had a video called Ramp on Wall I saw when I was in Park City. And like it literally was like, here's these guys with the ramp cruising around Salt Lake.
Talented, these guys.
Yeah, and like the editing, what they were doing, it wasn't the hardest tricks, but it was so entertaining to watch. And I was like, man, and they just kind of like let me in, and then we just started doing this thing, and still like we shoot all sorts of product videos, and they're so creative. I almost got to like step back or I mess it up because I come from a different spot and I over-engineer stuff. So I'm like, I trust you guys, but. Like,
that's how you get the best work done, though. Don't
absolutely
micromanage. Let somebody. You got them for a reason, man.
Yeah. And Seamus, I mean, for people that don't know Seamus Foster, he did the FSBS videos with Forrest and like that whole, like super creative. But he filmed this clip in the Polar Skateboard video that's like still like my favorite clip of the skateboarder Nick Bozzario. That is probably one of my favorite skate clips of all time. And it's crazy to think that like, I don't know, that's like that Salt Lake has this thing that's globally seen. But with the skate videos, you're absolutely right. So the market, everyone that doesn't skate wants to skate, and if they don't skate, they want the board for their wall. And that's kind of similar how Supreme, like most people buying Supreme don't skate.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so it's like this. It's this weird thing of trying to do both, and it's a balance. It's hard to really be authentic to the core guys, which is being a core guy is so tough because you don't want to conform to anything, but yet you want something new and cool. But if it gets too new and cool, you got to find something new to
you almost hate everything.
Yeah.
But
once it gets too popular, you hate on it.
Yeah. So the core guys, I think they like that I do weirdo stuff because it kind of aligns with their trajectory. Yeah. And then most of the kids that don't skate, they're like, they just want the logo on a T-shirt because they're part of that thing that kind of defines it. And like I said, I like both sides of it because I've been both sides of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but the skate stuff is something that for the first time in a long time, we're going to do decks. And I've always stayed away from decks. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary at the same time because when you love something so much, you're like, I don't want to ruin this, you know. And so I've always,
I think
I think it'll be cool. I just think that like it's definitely one of those things where it's hard to, you can't just put one out and stop. Like it's a full commitment to like this is a vibe, and but we don't want to fuck it up.
That's a degree that you love the culture of this shit because the margins are trash on those things, right?
Yeah, and I think though like so. This is going to be crazy. So the whole thing with the vending machine, one of the reasons to start is basically if you have a vending machine and you can sell skate decks out of it, which I've vending a skate deck out of a vending machine, it'll change the whole industry. One of those at every skate park, will change how people buy skateboards. If you set it up on the side of a machine, you buy
Lizard
trucks.
might be your biggest customer. If he breaks his, is he the one that breaks for you?
I focus boards, but I don't.
He'll be lined up buying boards right at the park. If
they're flat,
24 hours. You go on a Sunday, you get a deck out of the vending machine. But the bad part about it is if it gets in, I don't say gets in the wrong hands. If it's done the wrong way, it'll skew shops. It'll make the good shops like it'll steal money from them.
This is evolution, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it can be done. I think it can be done hand in hand to where like the vending machine is outside the cool shop to bring people to it, but it's open 24 hours.
Should just get your vending machine.
So it's got to be done cohesively. Yeah. So there's like this agreement. So that's really the goal. My fear is having the dudes that are, just producing blank decks, being like, oh, here's money to be made. Let's put it around every skate shop, and we're just doing blank decks and blank wheels with no culture behind it.
Yeah, that sucks.
I think skateboarding doesn't buy into that though.
I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of, to me, man. I haven't skated in a long time, but when I was young, the graphics and the colors and everything about it and was sick. Not as Copus was my first sport. I was so hyped. The Panther, like that shit was sick.
And people are particular. Culture. Like for me, I can't skate. I've been skating Girl Chocolate 8 that's flat for the past 4 years, and if I step on something else, I'll put it in the trash immediately. So it's like people need their specific their whatever it is. So if you guys are hitting like a specific shape, the blanks are fucking bullshit. Nobody wants a blank.
Yeah, and that's been the thing. It's taken me actually a lot of time to figure out. Well, not to figure out, but to get the right in to make the good decks. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's so. I think just being patient with all that and just knowing like, hey, let's not force anything. Like, let's do it when the time's right. And the time actually feels like perfect right now and feels for the right reasons. And it's like, yo, let's do something that like we're hyped on. And but it's also, like I said, it's scary, but it's cool,
Are the skaters in the videos all from Salt Lake? Or?
Yeah, so we did 3 videos that are all Salt Lake guys, and so we want to do a trip real bad. So
get those kids on the road.
Yeah, like we would just like, let's do like some weirdo spots in Wyoming, and then we've made a bunch of international friends that also skateboard through those videos, and so it's pretty cool because now we're like,
you can just roll up.
Like these guys have a spot. Yeah, we could go and stay for like a week or two and like film stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's like I said, I can't really take that much credit. I literally just show up with my gallon of water, and those guys, like the filmers and the skateboarders, are like so sick that that I'm just like I'll touch on it where it needs touch, but like I trust you guys and I trust everything you're doing.
He's actually not. That's not true.
No,
I'll tell you exactly how it goes down. I'll show you exactly because I've been on the session a couple times. He shows up with a gallon of water. And he basically tries to like bust like a fucking ender on the spot.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah?
I feel like you're always swinging for the fences, but you're batting like one
extremely high.
You're like, she shoots super high, but he's batting like 1 for 6. But when he does get one of those 1 for 6 clips, it's like a certified A grade. You know what I mean?
Dude.
Like I don't know. Those miracles happen every now. The miracles happen every now and again, but yeah, it's. You're talking about this
1 out of 6 times.
Man, it's like 1 out of. I'm literally sending texts being like, "Don't give up on me, guys." Like, you know what I mean?
Because it's an investment. Going back to the spot like 10 times.
Yeah, for sure. And them all knowing last time you said like, "I'm not leaving until I get this," but you left and you didn't get it, and you're like, "Fuck, I can't say that."
And they're all like, "We'll be back."
Yeah.
That's sick, man.
But it's pretty cool. Like I said, Salt Lake in a whole, and just like. It's so different than any part of the world just because the people that snowboard, the people that skate, it's a different vibe. And it's cool, man. It's like everyone's doing cool stuff.
It sounds like you're helping to put it on the map, man.
I'm just happy to be a part of it. Like I said, it's
videos go crazy.
I get a lot of people that are like, "Oh, you're doing this. It's never been done before." I'm like, literally, I'm copying everybody that I'm into. I'm just packaging it different. Like I can't claim credit. Like this is all the stuff that people came before me, inspired me. Like I'm still watching old snow videos, old skate videos. Yeah. And so I'm like, sure. I'd love to take credit, but really, like, I'm just combining these things. So let me show you where my inspiration comes from. Like this old, Transworld video or something
You're
like that.
You're modest about it, but man, that's just how it's done.
It has an impact on the culture for sure. And the thing that I'm a fan of is Caleb likes to skate it's a handicap ramp that goes over the bar.
I've heard you tell me
the bump over bar.
Handicap ramp, God. Is that the word of the street?
We call them bump to bars.
Yeah.
Bump to bars.
And so
B2B,
I was actually, I don't think he had my number saved if I remember correctly, but there was a minute where I had Caleb's number and I was taking pictures of bump to bars and texting it to him.
Know who's
so he was getting just anonymous bump to bars coming through.
He's like, all right, I'll go find that.
And I was like trying to be like, oh yeah, like how's the run up? Like I didn't know, you know what I mean? I
Trying to
didn't-
feel them out.
yeah, being like, I don't know who this is, but like,
But thank you.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, am I being like, it's like a bad spot? And then I think we connected on it. Actually, like a year after he sent it to me, he rolled up. He's like, I sent you a bump to bar. And I was like, that was you? I was like, we rolled up to that thing. I was like, it's kind of crazy. I was like, it's doable if you want to go back. No, it was rad. And yeah, the bump to bar thing is something, I had a folder. I could never do them when I was younger. And then something clicked and I did like one. And I was like, man, I'm going to do them all. Like if I see one, I'm going to try to do
That's
it. And
sick.
it like mentally, it was like this cool kind of like checkpoint for me in life. And then I maybe, like I said, over-engineered it a little bit. And the homies are like, yeah, it's cool. But like, we've seen every bump to bar in Salt Lake. So if it's not interesting, maybe pull back a little bit.
That's sick, though.
But yeah, it's cool.
Well, those things are hard to get over. Those ramps don't give you much.
It's
but-
like a mental thing. Yeah. Especially as you get older, you're kind of like, oh man, I need a little more pitch on it. You know what I mean?
He
So-
was talking about the other day. He's like, I think bump to bars built pre this time have an ADA ramp code, right? He had knows all the
yeah.
specs on the shit.
He's got the
Predated.
degrees figured out.
Well, at some point I started being like, I can't get over it, so maybe I can like go through it.
Oh yeah, he does hippie hop
Yeah,
bump to bars. Yeah.
That was like a fun one where I was like, is that still sick? You know, so it's cool. I mean, really just trying to be like creative around all that stuff and not force anything. Just say we're at this spot, the homies are here. Like, let's see what happens, and let's not have a prepackaged idea of what this looks like because none of us know. And then once everybody that I think is creative kind of touches on it, ends up. I don't know. I really like a lot of the films and stuff. So
That's sick.
it's cool. So we want to do a snow one. We want to do like a
Oh,
with the Bruhlers,
shit.
yeah, with the hats and stuff. We want
Yeah,
to do
what's
like
the deal with Bruhlers?
Yeah, talk about Bruhlers.
so the Hathenbruck stuff. Like I said, since some of it carries like a higher price point and it's kind of weird, it's not accessible to everybody. And so I started getting bummed on that. I started being like, man, this is sick, but I only have like 10 of them, and like this kid's so hyped on what we do, but like I need a product for him, and without diluting the rest of what I kind of built. And so I loved hats. I love the fact from a business standpoint, like just headgear was like non-seasonal, no genders, no sizing. So financially, I'm like, oh, like I can invest in this hat thing, and I don't have to think about it too much. Like it doesn't have to define me like Hathenbruck did. I had so much of my own personality in that, and what we were doing that like this is like let's just like kind of let go of the wheel a little bit and like have a little bit more fun with it and do something kind of strange. And so also I hadn't snowboarded in a long time, and so it was an excuse for me to be like, I got to go to the mountain to get some content or like roll around or whatever. And really that was me saying like, I miss snowboarding, you know what I mean? I want to do it again. And so we kind of brought this hat brand with it. And it's me, I have a friend in Montana named Jordan, who's like childhood friend. And we would always be like, yo, let's do a brand. And that was like, okay, like let's do this together. And so he still works his job. I like try to design hats, and it's been super fun because we're not thinking about it too hard. And then ironically, every cool snowboarder in the world's embraced it. So
Dude,
I
I hear about it all the
dude,
time.
it's so
Dude,
sick.
I'm gonna piss my pants.
Yeah, I got to
I'll be
piss
right
too.
back.
Let's both spot.
Sorry about that, dude.
Woo.
get it with
All
the
right.
tap.
Bruhlers.
So, as far as the Bruhlers go, who you got on the squad?
Yeah, who is on the squad?
Dude, it's stacked right now. Like everybody's been super supportive, and they know like this saying, whenever you start a brand, it's fast and loose, and you're trying to figure out what it is. And I tell these guys constantly, like, we want to build this thing out for you. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I'm into, and they're like, no, that hat's sick. I'm like, yeah, but like again with the inspiration, it's like this whole thing is like I know where I want to take it, but like if it doesn't work for you guys, like I've been in your position before, and if people hand me whack shit and want me to wear it, it's like I want to be able to say like, dude, like. Do you
And
have-
these kids today aren't scared to be like, oh, it's kind of whack.
Yeah, no, and so it's dope, and I want that, you know. So we sent a bunch of boxes out, and then Jed's got a box, and Kuzik's got a box. Dust Box kids are like fully lubed out. We got Sage. I mean,
I see Sage rocking
Sage,
it.
too.
that kid's awesome. I mean, I knew him
Damn
since
gold medalist wearing those things.
him and Griff and that whole squad. Blake Paul, like when they were all younger, I was lucky enough to like, I don't know, see him in the park and stuff, and
Meet them and get to know them. And
yeah, and so it's really cool because that's come a long way. Like they're so supportive, and to be able to like send a box to somebody, and then within like 48 hours see them in a helicopter with it, with like it's insane. You
That's
know what I
insane.
mean? Like it's really cool, and I think that's something that like I think it's the age demographic of the kids that we have in snowboarding now are like really taking care of the industry. Like I remember reading like a snowboarder long ago. It was like a launch series, and it was like that young group of guys is so solid, and a lot of them now are like the top of the top, and they're leading that. I think it's in really good hands, and part of it shows when like I don't know, they're supporting in that way. So who else we got? We got a bunch of people. We got
the box though.
Parker Zumowski, Park Zumowski. Zumowski. I always mess his name up.
Yeah.
Boggs is in.
Shouts to Boggs. You can give him a couple air
I'm
horns.
gonna miss Kale.
Oh, Kale gets.
I was
Zima.
gonna say, you want me to Google the team list?
Dude, I had to like write a list just because like it was kind of say Jib Girl.
Shouts to
she's
Jib
on the
Girl.
crew.
Yeah, we got. We have. What else we got? Then we got like a bunch of friends. Like the idea behind it too is like Peter Sutherland is a dope photographer and a good friend of mine. Like his whole style and just like where he sees value just aesthetically in different things I love. And so like he's in and Jim's in, like, so it's, I mean, I love that these guys are all talented, but more importantly, like they're all just like so ahead of their time in the style and everything they have. It's like, I just want to be a part of that. And so it's cool.
I'd like to touch on the fact that we had a pretty legendary powder day this winter. It nuked.
I bookmarked that the other day.
And he, it was funny because he kind of almost brought that streetwear fashion to the mountains
On a pow day.
On a pow day, the thing he was rocking a lot of cotton. The
Windproof
functionality
and water.
Dude, I gotta be honest. I used to wear cotton for years,
Yeah.
dude. Even though I knew it wasn't the right choice,
Yeah.
I was just like, "Fuck
He
it."
went
I know, yeah.
open jacket on the big dog.
That's just flavor right
Yeah.
there.
Well, it was one of those things I was already kind of like, everything was soaked. And so I'm like, if I'm going to go, I'm going
Fuck
to go all
it.
the way. Yeah,
Air
I
it
was
out.
like, it's not like I'm going to get any drier. So we sent it. But that was super fun. And it was awesome. You guys even
Where
invited
were you
me.
guys?
It was Brighton. Just
Epic
we were
pow
riding
day.
Billy's.
Pow day.
Billy launching
Yeah.
all the cliffs. Like we had the vinegar was flowing.
He's basically in a full denim kit with cotton underneath
It-
on,
it was
on the
white-
sickest pow
It was
day.
rough.
Full pow day, white hoodie. We'll insert the clip in the video. I have it on my
Dope,
phone.
white hoodie.
No,
It was-
white. It was white from the snow. It was
Oh,
a black.
yeah,
hoodie.
yeah.
It didn't start
Yeah.
white, but it was white afterwards.
It just started crusting up.
I was kind of fanning out too because like all these guys were going. And like I said, like as far as like having like all my inspiration on the hill and then being included, it was like no matter what goes down, this moment's epic. And also like pow day. You know what I mean? Like it was like, this is so sick. So
Who was,
so I had to
who
unzip
was
the jacket.
there? That day?
Proddy was on it.
The edit's insane.
Good
Yeah.
crew.
Yeah, I think G-Don was there. maybe.
G-Don, Harry, G. Siebes. We had a legendary crew. It's one of those jump off anything days.
Yeah,
Proddy, I think, was MVP though.
definitely. That dude, so good. He's good at skating too.
Got the old dog
nice
out
kid.
with the young kids, huh?
Yeah, I was like,
who's the old dog?
You dog.
Oh yeah. You gotta get the old dog out
You
with
gotta-
the young dogs. It's
yeah,
like
it starts to make you feel younger.
like the Proddy, or the bee fox analogy. It's like when you got a dog that's about to die.
Yeah,
and you
get
get
'em
the
with the
new
young
dog.
kids.
Yeah.
You get the new dog. That's kind of like
was
me.
B. Proddy wearing a beanie, or was his hair just looking good on a pow
Yeah,
day?
upper management was here with Bruhlers.
I
So
think I had-
oh
yeah.
yeah, you got him wearing
Yeah.
the beanie. Have you ever seen him out on the pow
Oh,
days?
yeah.
His hair looking awesome.
insane. It was funny. So that was so Stax. So Stax drops this
yeah,
insane
Sneaks.
cliff.
That's what it
Yeah,
was.
he drops this insane. Sam Taxel drops this insane cliff in that
I
edit.
think I seen some of this actually on the
Yeah.
gram after.
I posted a video.
Yeah.
And I'm standing right behind him on this insane double cliff drop. Like I'm pretending like I know Brighton. Like I've never ridden Brighton till this past year, and
Oh, really?
I'm in
You're like,
I'm in love
yeah,
with it.
dog.
Like I'm like so hyped, and so I'm following Stacks, being like, I still got it. I don't know where he's going, but I'm in. And he goes to this zone, and he looks back at me. He's like,
You might want to cut over here.
no, yeah. He was like, it's pretty crazy down here.
You're
and
about
after
to
I
get
hit this,
cliffed out, son.
I was fully cliffed out, and I even tried to play along and was like, no, I think I got something right over here. I had nothing. I was just trying to like stay alive, and he did the gnarliest thing, and I saw
was
it from
big
the
dog
top.
shit.
Yeah, and
So were you forced off it?
oh yeah, I mean, you couldn't see what I did, but you could hear it because I was just like sliding down rocks and stuff. and I heard everybody at the bottom be like, "Is Caleb up there still?" And they're like, "No," and I was like right beside him, like, "No, man, I made it down. I went
Right
a
here,
different
dog.
zone." Yeah, and I just had to like
I had my
literally
line.
fully
Just
But,
big mountain cotton, just ragdolling through the woods.
God.
I was like, so hyped that they didn't see what I had to do to get out of that
They
zone.
would have been just stoked you made it down.
But
shit.
they all kind of were like, "Yeah, he was up there with us," and I was like, "Yeah, man, we came down different routes, but we were all there." You know,
Dude, that zone is the shit, though.
I'm in love with Brighton right now. Like, and I kind of feel like I appreciate it now more than ever. And so, yeah, it's cool. It's insane.
I kind of want to circle back around to a couple things I was just thinking about as you were talking. And you've had, still have, I shouldn't say had, you still have Hathenbruck, you got the vending machine,
Yep.
and you got the Bruhlers. And it's like you're talking, you close the brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the beginning stages of a brand of launching
Yeah.
is the most exciting part. And it's like that, just being on that, like the launch phase is, and not sticking around for it to be too stagnant or moving the target, hitting that moving target.
And so when I closed this flagship, people were like, "Are you bummed?" But I'd already done that. So like every 3 years, I close and go to something new. One, because I feel like I'm evolving and the store's evolving, and the things like the first store was American Heritage, the second was expensive kind of Park City vibe, the third one was art driven skate and like high end. And like I said, I'm going more to like a core route with this next one. So I'm like, I kind of want slat wall and like display cases. Like maybe I'm the click, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's this weird like journey I'm on. And so I think that like I've done it enough now. I'm not scared of closing, which a lot of people, they get so scared, like their shop defines them. And I'm like, dude, this is just another chapter. Like I'm evolving, and I like that you want this here, but like I'm still learning what like I'm into. And then with all these like brands and store concepts and stuff too, like you learn each time you do it. So it's one of those things where it's almost like edging a little bit to where the coolest thing about opening a business, and like if you talk to anybody successful, like I would get crazy successful people that come to the shop where I'm like, dude, why are you in here talking to me out of all the people in the world? And with like how, I guess, financially successful people. And every time that they would talk about is like, oh, remember, like I was like you, I was starting this in my garage, or like I was doing it. And that's what they talk about, not like the millions of dollars they have and stuff. I'm sure that they're comfortable with it. But the most value they see out of all that is a time where they were like, the best of times, the worst of times, where they were like starting that out, grinding with their friends, doing the mail order in the garage, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so seeing that, I kind of like, I know that I can't do that forever, but I've been able to do it enough to where like, oh, you have a little success, so like turn it off, see if you can do it again. And then you get this like weird confidence thing where you're like, yo, I might like switch the flow a little bit and do something else. And financially, it's probably not responsible forever. Like you self-sabotage what you're doing. But from a point of like really loving what you're doing and having value in it, like it's so dope. And I'm super like lucky to even have that opportunity. Most people are like, I'd love to do that, but like if I close my business, like I'm out of business. So I think being able to make enough mistakes early on to know like this mistake will sink your business.
It's actually smart.
This one's kind of fun, you know?
It's also smart too, because looking at that space of, you know, fashion or whatever you want to call it, there's trends in all aspects, whether it's snowboarding or skating or all that. Like take, for example, S footwear, you know, like early 2000s, the Costin 2, the puffy shoe, it was like booming, right?
Yeah.
You take that shoe, you put it on a shelf, nobody's going to buy it right now. They want the Van slip-on, or they want this. So it's like having to constantly be hitting that moving target and stay ahead of fashion is exhausting. So it's like, fuck it, I'll shut this thing down for a minute. I'll do this, and I'll be in that honeymoon phase of the brand is pretty sick.
Totally. It takes like a lot of it's being patient. I mean, a lot of it, especially like anybody that's done a brand or retail knows that like there's going to be days where no one's going to come in. You're going to do a 0 day and you're going to feel like repainting the store, reorganizing because shit's not popping off. And being able to know like, yeah, I just need to go skate, or like I need to step away from this for a day, and knowing that day's coming is a good, like for me, I would get so antsy and be like, I mean, the first 5 years, like, no one was talking about it. There's no traffic to the website. No one even knew what it was. I was explaining to every customer what the concept was. And there'd be days where like people would like come in and be like, oh, this is sick, but I'm going to buy a hat. Like, cool. But like, my rent's so expensive in Park
how
City.
am I paying rent with this $20 bill I just made?
And so you're like, man, I'm going to like go to the recycling center and get some paint and some old wood and like make a new pallet like table or some shit over here. And then 30 people would come in while you got the store wreck, you know, wanting to buy shit. And then you just look so unorganized. And knowing that timing and that kind of waiting for it, it's like fishing or something if you get antsy, but it's stressful. So like, but if you're younger and you want to, you know, start a brand or whatever, like having a mentor, like finding that and asking them lots of questions. Like some people will be like, yo, fuck off or whatever, but the right person's there's no wrong question. So ask them everything. And so I just kept asking enough people and have kind of found different mentors along the way, or things I like, and try to grasp to them. And the dope people would be like, yeah, dude, what do you need? You know, I got you.
I experienced that. I hit you up about a hat, and then all of a sudden he's sending me sources and links and screenshots, and it's like, this is your this. And so I've witnessed that.
There's two types of people. There's some that are like kind of haters, and they just don't want to share any information. And there's others that are
feast
just
or
like,
famine people kind of.
Yeah, and there's other people that are like, dog, let's do this. What do you need?
And if you covet stuff, you only kind of like hinder yourself. So I felt like if I wasn't continually looking for new resources, I wasn't moving ahead. I was stagnant. So I was like, give my resources up. I can still use them whenever, but I should still look for
karma,
like pushing.
Dude, it comes back. Totally. If you have that, it'll come back full circle. And I always believe in
just sharing those resources.
doing whatever you can, man. Help people out. Don't be a
And the people that
Be the other person.
the people that like have been successful no matter what it's done, they know it's like half, like not even half of it, probably like 10% is having the right resources. The other 90% is actually going out and doing it.
Yeah.
So like you can have all the opportunities in the world. You can have financial backing. You can have know where stuff gets made, but going and doing all that shit and still looking after it after you've been looking at it for like 3 months and not being sick of this project, whether it's music, snowboard, video, whatever, and still being hyped when it comes out. That's the real trick. Like that's the total thing, is not being bummed out on it. And so the people that have done it are like, dude, whatever you need, I got you. Just follow through, make it as dope as you can. Don't kill yourself.
Well,
Good advice.
You know?
I kind of want to circle back on that and keep going on the advice, because it's pretty awesome. And from what I'm hearing, it's almost like people are winging it. Like you're just going for it. And
Totally.
even us with the podcast, like it might seem like we know what we're doing. We are fully fucking winging it. We have no idea what we're doing. Like
Totally.
we're just like jumbled around. Like I got a fucking spoon under
There's
one of the
a
GoPros,
spoon
like
tripod.
holding it up. Like I don't even have a tripod. Like it's
See,
but
I don't think it's a spoon. I think it's a tripod. I think you
I
should
think
sell those.
I think it's
You
the
know what I
new
mean? Like that's a Bombcast tripod. And that's like $100. Yeah.
See, this guy, he's a opportunist. He's a very. And then, do you have any other advice for people that are sitting there that are like, I'm thinking about starting a brand or like?
A shop,
Absolutely.
brand, or anything. You know?
Absolutely. And I get asked like there's a lot of kids out there like want to do stuff, and I think that for the record, everyone told me no and continue to tell me no. Like, is it a good idea? Like you never have this brand, you'll never be able to do this, you'll never be able to do that, and it just means kind of like not right now. It never means like it's not going to happen. And so like, and then you get to sit down with those people that told you no.
People love to say you can't do shit.
Totally.
Good fuel.
The hardest part is to sit down with somebody told you no and be like, yeah, man, so good to meet you. And you'd be like, you told me you'd never do this. Yeah. And but you can't say that. You're like, oh, dude, good to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and you're like, you told me 2 years I'd never had this opportunity. And now like I got the opportunity.
Here I
So
am.
yeah. So, and that's still chill. Like it maybe wasn't their fault, but
I
advice.
like when people say no. You know, it's like,
Yeah. Like, all right,
All
cool.
right.
Like, I'll ask you in a couple hours. Yeah.
Oh, you can't front board this, King Krill.
Yeah.
Oh, I can.
And that was a little bit like, I mean, we'll circle back to the brand thing, but it just reminded me that was a little bit of when I started. I spent probably the first 5 years trying to get invitations to other people's brands or parties or social circles or like cool shit. You know what I mean? Whether it be like in snowboarding or skateboarding or the fashion world, everything's kind of clubby and kind of tight knit groups. So I was like, man, if I have these brands, I'll get invited here. And I started to get super frustrated because I like couldn't get the opportunity I was looking for. I was in Utah. I was cold emailing people trying to like, get stuff popping off. And then like on the skateboard vibe, I started thinking about, I'm like, dude, I've never got invited to skate a ledge in front of a business, but I've always had fun skating a ledge. And a lot of times I've gotten a trick. Like I've never got the invite. So like, why am I waiting for an invite now to like design this product I want to design? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm trying to go get the trick. So like if I'm going to do a jacket that's got tape on it, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to wait. You know what I mean? I'm not going to wait
Yeah.
for the invitation to do it.
Yeah,
Like
you
I've
gotta
never
do
done
it.
that. And so with new kids, I think there's a lot of like, oh man, like I want to get in this store. Like, how do I do it? Or like, I want to make this product. Like, so you just start doing it. And most of the people, they're more motivated by missing out than by gaining. So like if you're trying to be like a snowboarder or skateboarder or whatever as well, like if you like sponsor me, they're like, yeah, no. But if you're like, hey, you're going to miss out if you don't, they're like, fuck, I don't want to miss out. Like, but if you tell them like, yo, you're going to gain a lot, they're like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
so,
we're good.
So a lot of it is,
FOMO marketing.
yeah. So a lot of it is like, yo, I'm pushing no matter what. You can hop on, you know, you ride on the cape or, you know, you can chill. But circling back around to starting a brand, I think my advice for kids, again, is just starting. Just because like you can't see like point C from point A. And if you think about it too hard, that big idea concept, you're never going to start. And so once you start, you'll start doing more projects more often. You'll get better at it and you'll find like your rhythm. Like you have to be fluent in your language. And for me to be fluent in my language of design or whatever, I copied people because like, I mean, you start thinking like I said, everything. I mean, Richard Pryor copied Cosby. You had, you know, everybody's copied everybody. Even like a designer, there's a fashion designer named Rick Owens. He's like one of the biggest U.S. fashion designers, and especially the younger generation. I mean, he got his start from bootlegging designer shoes,
Sick.
and then his shoes are now designer. So it's the whole thing's ironic. But I would just say just start, and then set a realistic expectation. Like most kids are like, I want to make a 17-piece collection, and it's like, dude, no. do a t-shirt, design it dope, sell 100, come back and do 2. You know what I mean? And just a realistic thing that you can scale. It's not creative. It's not that fun, but that's a designer thing, is being able to say, I want to be creative, but right now, to be creative, to pay for it, you have to scale an existing design. And the hardest part is it's redundant, but that's what you have to do to put the money back in. So, and then shop-wise, in this state of things, I think it's a really good time to start a shop, just because a lot of people wanting to get their mind off of like, oh, what the next 10 years look like, because there's so much uncertainty. And also as far as like traveling and stuff, like international travel is kind of hindered, so you're not saving up for that big vacation. So like I'm trying to buy a new skate deck. So like if you're starting a skate shop or you're buying new sneakers, it's like you're looking at the here and now, and you're not spending a lot of large biscuits, but you're spending a lot of smaller biscuits to just stay in a mental health like good spot.
True.
And so from business perspective, I think it's a good time to maybe like double down on that. High risk factor, but also high reward, I think. So
I love that.
That's
I love
awesome.
that. And I think there could be a shift too here. And you talk like everything's going Amazon, one click. Like it's just like flavorless, for lack of a better word. And I think there'll probably be a shift where it'll be like anti-Amazon.
There's a big worry there's going to be one store that controls the everything.
I don't think that'll.
Well, no, there's like articles like Amazon owning everything. Fuck this.
Yeah.
Let's reverse this plan. We cannot have this.
I have a friend, Scott, who like he hates Amazon, and his idea to bankrupt Amazon is on Amazon Day, where they ship everything for free. He was like, everybody order something that's like $1, but that's like as heavy as possible. Like order the smallest price items so they make zero margins, but then ship it all over the world. But everyone does it at the same time, so they're just like make no money from it.
I mean, the fact that people are sitting around trying to conspire on how to do that is dope.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's cool though. It's like, I think that the biggest thing is there's so many variables. Like, I think online, I think too, we're due for like a reset as far as like for retail and for shops and stuff goes. Like the ones that need to stay around, they're going to be supported and they'll stay around. It's really cool to see.
Right?
Mm-hmm. And then there was a bunch of kind of like ones that were hanging on, and it's just speeding up the process of them going out sooner, which is going to allow them to get into their new project, do their new thing, and be more successful faster, hopefully, and try these new projects. So I don't think it's going to hurt anything that wasn't already hurting before. It's just going to speed up the process and hit our reset a little faster. So if you're a new kid and you're trying to start a business or a brand, I think the timing, your speed to market, you can pivot. These big brands, I mean, in the future of like...
They can't pivot too quickly.
Well, I mean, everyone's doubling down on their purchase orders for fall. And if you're a shop, you canceled your purchase order in July. Yeah. So right now it's buy one, get one. You know what I mean? Just trying to not eat your product. And so that's when things come like printing other stuff on your T-shirts. That's like, we got to get creative to move it. So for me, I've been doing that for a while, so it's not that new. So I feel like the threshold's up. Yeah. But for bigger brands, it will be tricky to see that kind of.
They're getting a lot of people canceling orders and they're panicking. And
that's why for something like Bruhlers, I'm like, let's go.
Let's go. We're ready.
And there's such a yin and yang aspect to the, like you look at McDonald's and Del Taco, right? I mean, I'll fucking hit a Del T every once in a while. But if it was all McDonald's and Del Taco, I want my mom and pops. I want my Hectors. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a yin and yang to the big box versus small. So it's not like you should bail on your shops.
We always thought it was like the wine and cheese kind of thing, where like that pairing is what makes things special and like gives it taste or flavor and gives it contrast. And they say variety is spice of life. So if everything is pretty vanilla and it's a one spot, I mean, it's only a matter of time until you're going to get some new flavors in there. It's cool. It's like
you used that to describe your brand earlier before we were rolling. Yeah. You want to talk about that more?
So again, I don't want to only do T-shirts. I don't want to only do hoodies. And I think that one, for the sake of my customer, it needs to be, a lot of my customers like weird shit. Like that's my brand. Like weird stuff that's interesting, that it's not perfect. Like there's, when you go into Japan, Wabi Sabi is this idea. It's a term used that is basically creating stuff with flaws on purpose, just so it feels really like literally like feels something. And so if you have OCD and you like everything perfect and packaged, you're gonna hate this concept.
Yeah.
But I love it because I think most of the things that I like, whether it be a brand, a film, music, it has an emotional attachment to it. And the emotional attachment is because it has no like resolution. So like you watch a movie, it doesn't have an ending. You ask your friend, you're like, oh man, you see that movie? Like, it sucked. It's like, good. At least they felt something. Like, why did it suck? The ending sucked. And you're like, yeah, but you're still talking about it now. So that's the special part of it. So when it comes to product, there's a lot of people that these kind of, I say a lot of people, but these kind of archetypes of what type of skateboarder you are. So you're dressed in Vans and, kind of flooded out Dickies and get the button up. It's like a SoCal look, or this archetype of the New York skater, the 917 looking skater. Same with snowboarding or fashion or anything else. So I like the idea of getting close to one of those archetypes or those looks and then going backwards. So people are like, it's kind of familiar. I see what Stone's doing with that tie-dye shirt, but like I've never seen this brand before. You know what I mean? He wears it different. So familiar enough that they want it, but not so familiar that they know all about it. And that's, I don't know, kind of creates this inner turmoil in people that I like.
You're describing this like intangible flavor, basically, is how I would, or like there's like a flavor to shit that.
Yeah, it's it would just be like, I'm trying to think of like how to explain. The idea is to stop short, like design something and stop short on purpose. Mm-hmm. And they're like, why didn't he put a zipper here? And that's frustrating because there needs to be a zipper here. I'm used to a zipper here.
Wabi Sabi's imperfection,
totally.
basically.
It's basically beauty in the imperfection.
Yeah. We've gotten so good at making stuff perfect, and not even perfect, but what we think perfect is, that we've stopped trying to like make it interesting.
Yeah.
And so like I said, my favorite skate parts are like the dude that manuals, but he doesn't make it the whole way through the manual pad, but they still leave it in the video.
Yep.
And it's not considered a trick, but it's my favorite part about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of my snowboard videos are like the whole thing leading up to it, the toe in that he bails on before he hits the rail, whatever. It's not even the rail. So like that's the part that I remember and that makes it different than every other video I've seen. And so how can we really focus on that and take it and put it in a product in a way versus just recycling what we know that works? And I think from a business standpoint, you need to do both. I'm not talking shit on the fact of doing carryover styles and running with what works, because they do that because it's a business and not a hobby. And I think if you're able to do both, that's where you find success, but also what I'm into, I guess.
It's beautiful, man. It separates you from the rest. The jacket comes with a little duct tape on it. You know what
exactly.
I'm saying?
And they're like, the best part is like, is that whack? And you're like, is it? And they're like, I don't know. I'm scared to ask. It's like, why are you scared to ask? Like, if it's whack, call me out. Like, that's the beauty about this conversation is like, and then they say, yeah, it is whack. And I'm like, well, dog, you got on washed jeans. And they're like, oh, and you're like, exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
they start to put it together.
Yeah. Like I never thought about like, I'm buying my jeans already ripped up, and like, you buy your jeans like that. Why wouldn't you buy a jacket like that?
Yeah.
Like it's not that far fetched. So I don't know. It's more interesting than anything. And,
well, and it's a story cool too. And that's like, people just want to connect and make them feel an emotion, and then they're attached, and that's cool.
Yeah. The whole thing's dialogue, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, I just want to talk to people about stuff. 'Cause I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I just throw stuff out there and have a conversation about it. And that's like what's super important in especially like snowboarding, skateboarding, fashion.
Everything.
Dude, it's got to have dialogue.
Old school style is when you had sales reps.
Yeah.
They just need a story.
Yeah.
And so you send them out. You send out this army of sales guys, and if there's no story, there's no connection, and you're here creating a story, and that's.
You knew Andy Wise, right? You know Andy Wise? Yeah. I mean, snowboard clinics. For those who don't know what a clinic is, where you come in and you talk about the product to help the sales staff sell it, and you like get the staff of the shop pizza or whatever, and a lot of it is showmanship. And I've heard you talk about showmanship, and I think that I think it's so important. But from those clinics, it's like, okay, you're selling people on the idea of this new product so they can sell it to other people, and so it's got to hit a little harder. And some of my greatest experiences are reps selling. I mean, I still use some of those. Like I use them in a different way. Like I'll show a jacket a certain way, and Wise would always be like, he'd have like a different name for that. He'd call them hand panties or kangaroo pockets that like go into jackets. Yeah, and he'd put your hand panties in there, and and just little stuff that brand hit on the back, and the way that they would do it and sell it. I still use those techniques, but it's all shop talk.
The good salesmen, they know, and it's connecting the customer with a story, and
emotional attachment.
The emotional.
Yeah. The consumer
cool.
likes to latch onto a story as well, too. They like
Yeah.
to understand the
I mean,
story.
to get with a brand, they got to know the story and attach.
Kind of an interesting thing, and we touched on it a little bit, but the idea of stories and this word minimal viable good, like I said, this is something that I constantly think about because it's probably more pertains to like the younger generation and social media and how is it easy to market yourself versus actually having to back it up. And I think, for example, I guess the point is that this day and age, you don't have to need to be the best at anything. You don't have to be the best snowboarder. You don't have to be the skateboarder, the best fashion guy, interesting talk show host, whatever it is. You just need to tell everybody that you're the best at it. But you have to be minimal viable good, meaning you have to be good enough that if somebody calls you on it, you at least look like you know what you're doing. But by the time you get everybody looking at you, you will be able to shoot that gap and figure out what you need to do, that hopefully you are the best. And the question is, if 1 million people, 2 million people, 5 million people are following you, I mean, are you the best at that thing? You know, I mean, does it even matter? And who's to say you're not, because it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Like that many people are watching it, like.
There's no wrong answer, really, so.
And like I said, I don't know if it's a world that I like want to live in. And I talk to people about this often because I'm like, what do we perceive good as? The kid that's got 200 followers, the kid's got 2 million followers. For me, I go through and try to find kids with low followers that I think are doing stuff interesting and throw it in big data because I think that's cool. And if they have a lot of followers, that's cool too. But really, you just have to be good enough and then be the loudest in the room to be, I guess, like, I don't know, socially or financially successful or whatever it is, but the best at something versus like mastering it. And so I tell kids, like, it depends what you want out of it. Like, if you want to know you're the best at doing something, like, do it really good and learn it. But if you're just looking for financial success to get out of your certain situation, just be good enough that you tell everyone you're the best. And by the time they come to question you, hopefully you're better than you are now. Like, you're just going to figure it out along the way,
so
you know?
sick.
And so it's, and that's why I tell people to start, you know what I mean? Just start telling people, like, yo, you make tacos, those are the best fucking tacos, you know what I mean? And they're like, are
A couple
they?
people say it. Oh, yeah, they are.
And if someone says those tacos suck, they're still talking about your tacos. You know what I mean? So joke's on them, you know? And then people
so
are like,
you
what
won
tacos
either
suck?
way, yeah.
Yeah.
No such press is bad press kind of thing, basically, right?
Yeah. And last, like I said, I don't want to ramble all day, but going into that, there's this thing that's super interesting that kids should look up. And it's a weird thing that's happening in, like, I don't know, I guess everywhere. But something I find fascinating is this thing called Cunningham's Law. It's this guy who basically said, it's basically based on the internet. And I don't even know if it really even stands, but I'm just fascinated with the idea. It's the fact that to find an answer to a question, how's it go? To find an answer to a question, the fastest way to get the answer is to post the wrong thing versus the right thing, because it's much more appealing to people to correct you and to get, like if I said, yo, so-and-so's got the best nose presses, they'd be like, no, so-and-so does. Versus if I say, who has the best nose presses? They'd be like, I don't know, man. You know? So like correcting somebody gives you more,
Emotional attachment, maybe.
Yeah, or like, what's that called? Like, not credible. It gives you,
you were right. Fulfillment.
Yeah, it's like more fulfilling to be like, no, I proved you wrong.
Self-righteousness is what it is ultimately, but like on the level, it just strokes your ego a little to know that you're right.
And there's a name for that, huh?
Totally. Yeah, it's called
sick.
So if you search the internet, like Amazon's worth $400,000 or whatever, you're gonna get the answer. Say Amazon is actually worth, Amazon's worth. Versus if you type in what is Amazon worth, you're gonna get all these articles conflicting about different amounts.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, you know where you see that the most that I trip out on, like when I would own Mud Dogs, a concrete company.
Yeah,
we build shit, right? There's a million different ways to fucking to split a chicken or whatever the saying is. There's a million different ways to what is that saying? Skin a duck or something?
Yeah.
There's a million different... skin a cat. I'm going to restart.
Yeah.
There's a million different ways to skin a cat. And in the same way, there's a million different ways to form a concrete quarter pipe.
Yeah.
Right? And when you build stuff, no matter what, even if it turns out perfect, people love to give you that unsolicited advice of like, oh, well, I would have done it like this. I would have done it like that. I would have done that, because it just like strokes their ego. I don't know what the psychology of it is, but...
And so I think a little bit of that, what I like to see is you're going to get criticism no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's actually more fun to put something out there and get the feedback on, because you're going to find the direction you need to go faster by doing it and getting criticism than if you're asking like, what type of brand should I do? Or what brand do you like? Or what tacos are the best? Versus being like, these are my tacos, fuck with them or don't. And then they're like, you know what I like? I like those sweet potato ones. Like they're better than yours. And you're like, well, guess what? I got sweet potato
Yeah,
tacos
I
now
guess
too.
I'm gonna make some sweet potato
It's
tacos.
beautiful. And in the day of the internet,
Genius.
it's a beautiful thing too, because like all of our information is right in front of us, especially for what we do with the podcast. Like we get these comments like, oh, make the intro shorter. We get a bunch of those. What do we do? We make the intro shorter. Like we have all our feedback right in front of us on the gram. You can tell, you get
People
all your,
will let you know. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's the focus group that we have in social media.
It's insane.
That you just start doing stuff. Don't even worry about like what you get, because you're going to find it along the way. They're going to tell you what they like, and you can't please everybody. You know, some of the people, some of the time, but just know, like, it's easier to navigate when you're moving forward than if it is when you're asking, like, which way should I move? And that's kind of the whole vibe of like, should I wax this skate ledge? It's like, should I design this thing? It's like, just fucking do it. And then as you come back around, you're going to know where to land it. So
I love it.
Sick.
Beautiful. It's like bodies in motion, stay in motion. Once you get going, you'll get going. But when you get stuck, you're stuck. But I don't want to keep rambling. It's been a hell of a
it's been good.
conversation.
One quick question I have for you: who are some designers you look up to, or have inspired you? I know you mentioned a couple, but
absolutely.
just curious.
Let me think on this for a second, because I have a lot of people I look up to. Give me one. I think like so. Margello's one. He's like more like higher, and he's somebody that just paints a lot of stuff, and he uses existing designs and creates other stuff. So like, if kids should Google him, and just like that whole brand, I would say. I was just thinking of one the other day.
It's probably an ever-changing.
It is,
too,
but there's a couple people that are awesome. Give me 1 second. So Margella's up there. In the skate world, there's some cool stuff kind of happening. There's a brand called Dancer that's out of Copenhagen. They're doing like weirdo stuff, and it's like they're all sick at skating, but they kind of want to like push out of the mold a little bit and be like, we don't want to be boxed in. So just that whole ethos I like. There's a bunch of outdoor brands that are doing cool stuff. What other designers are like? Oh man, I'm blowing it right now.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No.
It's a loaded question.
It is.
No, like there's a Japanese company called Capital with a K. They've never really given a fuck and still don't. And their stuff's almost like, some years it looks like cosplay, like gypsy costumes. And then every now and again you're like, this trucker hat is cooler than I've ever seen it. In the snow, I mean, I don't know who designed 2001, 2002. Foursquare and Special Blend.
Oh, that
like,
shit's gas.
I'm so nostalgic right now. And even like there's some dub outerwear pieces I still like, but that year specifically, I find myself being like, yo, I want that. There's a bunch of younger brands. There's a brand in Philly called All Caps Studio that's doing cool stuff. Another one called Dirtbag. This kid out of New York that's just, they're kind of doing it for the right reasons, and they haven't deviated over years. I mean, Dustbox. I mean, the Dustbox kids, for the people that don't know, they like on snow, they're sick, but they're all like visionaries as far as designing stuff.
Yeah,
like
they really
looking,
are.
They're resourcing and touching on stuff. Even if they don't know it yet, like they're inspiring other people just because they're wanting to push that a little bit. So I think that'll be sick. I guess from where I'm sitting, from design side and like business side, and asking questions like, who are you, like, what is stuff you guys are into right now, or like have been into, or stuff you've seen over like the course of the last 10 years that you'd be like, man, that was interesting. I wish those guys had stuck around, or I wish they continued to push.
Dude, after sitting here for the past little bit, I'm hyped on your shit, man.
Yeah. Oh my goodness,
you
man.
just blowing my
Yeah, I was
mind,
just
dude.
saying that, no.
I worked at a brand for 23 years.
Yeah.
And you get like, it gets so crazy because trying to design another line 20 years later is insane. You know, like, let's do it again, another catalog. Like, it's nuts. And hearing all your fresh perspective is really cool.
Yeah.
And then for me, I design a signature outerwear with 32 every year.
Yeah.
And so
those are sick. The pants are sick.
Thank you. But it's funny
I
you say
DM'd you.
the dub shit is cool. Like I always just almost like I just hop on Google and I'm like, dub outerwear.
Yeah.
And like I like those.
Dub was your big influence?
Dub, I always like the old dub, and then
was
old
sick, man.
like the old camos they used with Special Blend, and like old DC, even like the early 2000s DC. That's just for snow, but like
Analog was always one that always pushed me. That was hype.
So Analog had this guy named Errolson Hugh, who like went on, and the guy who started Visvim, which is this big Japanese company. Like a lot of, Burton, say whatever you want about Burton, but Burton's been in the forefront as far as like outerwear and finding, especially Japanese designers. And so, but they had a guy named Errolson Hugh, and he's gone on to like still be at the forefront of creating cool stuff. He had a brand called Acronym. He's done Nike.
Did you know Trent and Troy Bush at all?
So they did they do?
They worked on Analog as well, but they started with Twist and then Titan.
Did they do Sepia?
No,
That was 686.
Their first,
right?
that was 6. That was different, but they did
Section. They did
They did
Section.
Section is so
They
sick.
started with Twist, which was just insane.
I had Twist pants.
Yeah, Twist
Yeah.
was nuts.
You
and
used to
then-
rock Section now?
Me? We sold Section at the Click.
Okay.
Yeah, but they also did a bunch of the analog
MFN,
stuff,
yeah.
and then they did Section. Like it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Now one of them's making denim in the U.S., like handmade
Really?
denim, and the other one's still just designing, and it's nuts. Like 30 years later, these guys are still just designing sick shit. And
Dude, and like I said, that's really like kids. So the important thing is to know, like, there's younger kids getting into it. They think that fashion is the coolest shit out, and all the fashion guys think that skateboarding and snowboarding is the coolest shit out.
Yeah.
And so it's one big. So I don't really, I don't really show bad blood on either side. I like the whole vibe, and I think that everyone's got to do their own path through. But I have so much respect, especially now. Like I said, as I get older, being like, dude, some of this stuff that we had in the Click is better than stuff I'm buying from showrooms in Paris, and like, how do I get that again? You know what I mean? It's like some of those companies came through so fast. But yeah, we had I had Twist pants, man. That's pretty
yeah, they
cool.
were so dope back in the day.
Yeah,
And
30. I had 32 boots, 32 outerwear for a second. Like I said, we talked about Holden. I was big into Holden.
Yeah, Holden was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mikey did his own thing, and it was cool, and it showed. And
Yeah, and like you can tell when it's like comes from like authentic origins. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is crazier than it needs to be, or whatever it may be. But yeah, the
but you remember it, and
special
that's
blend
pretty
Force.
rad.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
It's
so-
a trip
Cool.
to think
That's
about
the dream.
too, though, because you're talking about a very unique, small, like, kind of progressive outlook on the fits and the prints and the style,
Yeah.
right? And then you look at the consumer of snowboard outerwear,
Yeah,
and the average person that buys jackets snowboards twice a year, and they're probably like a fucking accountant.
They
and,
want a black
and they're just
jacket.
like, yeah, that
pants.
one.
Yeah.
There's no thought. Where we're sitting there like pulling spec sheets from fucking old catalog,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well, no, I think like I said, the profitability is something that's always been like so challenging with doing outerwear brands and just snowboarding in general, hard goods and selling boots and the whole thing. And that's why like I want to like get back into it in a way, because I feel like there's new real estate and territory to say, hey, it doesn't need to be this wholesale setup. There's brands in other parts of the world that are going direct to consumer, and they're doing pop-ups, and they're still authentically affecting culture that they're a part of. Like take Palace Palace didn't wholesale forever. You know what I mean? They had a store that went direct to consumer. They're selling online. Like we could take a similar template with a new brand and say, we're going to do 6 pop-ups a year in all the right places. We're going to do one for a month in Salt Lake during the winter, and the rest is online. And we can still make money going direct to consumer, still give back to the culture. And we don't need to wholesale to these other places that are discounting our product as soon as they get it because they're scared they're going to get caught red-handed with it if it doesn't snow. And so I just like the idea that like it's a really, really awesome spot to start a new brand if you're a younger kid, to take this new idea and this new route of saying, look, like we're going to change the blueprint a little bit. We can still wholesale. We can still care about the shops that we love and support those guys, but we need to make sure this thing's built for, the longevity. And we can do that now with the internet and saying, we're going to get our own retail store with our own vibe and try to figure out some deal where we only have to have it for 3 months during the winter. In
Yeah.
the summer, we chill,
That's sick.
So I don't know. It's,
Man.
You mentioned Burton before too. Have you seen the new Mine 77?
I haven't, is that the like
It's
kind of
like
off?
Jake. It was like
the
Jake's brand that he started, and he
Yeah.
thought of it as like his supreme.
Yeah.
But they like just put out a kind of like just a coach jacket,
Yeah.
and it's I don't know. You probably don't remember J1, but there's this classic photo of him doing a layback on a stump, smoking a cigarette. It's like the most iconic Burton ad ever. Printed it on this Mine 77 jacket that did limited edition. It's like the sickest thing ever, like full photo print.
See, that's,
They just hired Blotto.
I was gonna say, did Blotto shoot that?
yeah.
No, this was shot like
Back in
way like
when you
before-
were like 4 years old,
Dude, yeah, for reals. No, it's probably like came out in
1866.
It came out in 90.
It's like Civil War.
89, let's
Civil-
say maybe. But this photo's
Okay,
insane.
pre-Civil War,
The
okay.
stump's blowing up everywhere, and he just had a half lit cig.
J1.
J1, yeah,
Yeah.
Jason Girardi.
Yeah.
But then they just hired Blotto, never painted in his life, but
Yeah.
he's painted, but
Yeah.
not like he's more a photographer.
Yeah.
And they hired him to do his like own board line painted by him, and he just spent like the last 2 months doing it, and is so hyped on it. Can't wait to see this come out, and it's just cool. They had analog, and now this going on. And it's pretty sick.
Kind of in that
Longevity.
space.
People,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, like, everyone's knocking on everybody all the time. I think that's just part of, like, our DNA as skateboarders and snowboarders.
Haters.
We
Yeah.
want to, like, everything's critical, but that's the reason that's so cool is because everyone's been under kind of like that critical vibe to make that shit better.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like, Burton's always, like, from the outerwear side, like, they've always done cool stuff and supported cool ideas, and they've also done some wax stuff too. But everyone has,
Yeah, of
you know what I mean?
course.
That's
If
part
you're
of the.
as big as them, it's
So-
gonna happen.
Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for, like, even smaller companies, bigger companies, and that's the real thing is, like, creating that culture around that brand,
There's
and
this
especially
guy
if it's
Greg. I don't
impactful.
know if you've ever met him.
Which
He's
Greg?
The guy that works at Burton for like. You've met this guy. He's
Well,
a
I haven't met him, but
big
actually I have
white
met
beard.
him.
He's pretty much the guy behind a lot of that dope shit over the years, and it's interesting he's been able to keep it up. You know.
So it's interesting though, and I mean, back to the critical side.
Yeah.
There's
Let him know.
So this is the hardest part about snowboarding. If we're nerding out, and it's one of the reasons skateboarding is a little bit cooler. For some reason, we're able to get away with more stuff, outfit wise, on snow. Ever since day one, skiing and
True,
snowboarding, it's always about being loud. It's more costumey, and sometimes that trickles into a brand's ethos. And sometimes you end up wearing that when you're off the snow. And we've seen that with celebrities in the snow over the years, where that kind of on snow persona gets carried off snow, and it looks more like cosplay than
Yeah.
a person.
Yeah.
And
Are we
and
talking about Shaun White?
I'm not naming any names,
Okay.
but sometimes that gets bigger than the actual brand, and it turns almost into a mascot of a brand, and it's kind of like a little cosplay. So a lot of people that have good taste sometimes take on that identity too strong, and then it turns into like this whole different thing. It's not about snowboarding anymore. It's not about skateboarding. It's like, I feel like it's a,
Yeah, like, what the fuck is
this
going
dude's
on
out
here?
in a costume, and if no one's calling him out, like, are we the fucking crazy ones? You know what I mean?
I think people call it out.
yeah.
It is what it is.
And then at the same time, I usually wait till everyone calls him out, and I say, "You'll be nice, guys. He's just doing him." Like, don't, you know. But I'm the
Yeah.
one that instigated it the whole time.
That's
Yeah,
genius.
get everybody. No, but the outerwear thing's really cool. And like I said, I was telling Schubert came by the other day, and I was Spencer Schubert, and I was telling him, like, we're in such a good spot right now. Like, I think that, like, there's a lot of brands that are hitting like that retro era. They're looking for inspiration. They're looking for kids to embrace this 90s. We always say that. We always say 90s inspired, but it never is. It's just the tagline. But I actually think now more than ever, we're seeing it from like an authentic vibe of like the homies are going up and just building the jump and sessioning it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Everything's a little bit more lo-fi, and we're kind of burnt out on really good stuff. We're looking for interesting stuff. And I really hope that comes back aesthetically towards the outerwear, and aesthetically towards the boots and the everything about it. So I don't know, it's cool. K2 is another one. They were cool enough to send me some boards last year, and I like that they're pushing in like kind of a retro way. I like that Sims is back. Those guys are so sick. My first
Yeah.
board was a Sims. So
Oh, was it?
yeah. Well, actually, I had a Division 23 because of Mikey. Was my first board, and then a
Nice.
Sims after that, and then a Rusty.
Rusty,
yeah.
going for it.
Real sick setup. Yeah, everyone's pushing kind of this retro vibe, and I don't know, I back it. I think.
Yeah, it's
I think
cool.
the time I'm biased too because my timing and getting back into it and
Yeah.
being nostalgic really aligns with that. So, but yeah, they've always been doing cool stuff, I guess. So.
Fucking dope.
Man, I think this was a beautiful, forward-thinking, just kind of great conversation.
It was, man. I'm stoked.
I don't know if we can navigate through any of that. I feel like I rambled a little bit.
No,
but
it was perfect. It got my
Yeah.
wheels turning.
You guys are
Yeah,
hyped.
dude.
Yeah.
I think it's sick.
You guys are dope for having me. I'm like,
Stoked to have you.
no,
dude.
it's cool. It's just awesome to kind of be a part. Like I said, you guys are always nice for including the right people, and it goes back into like, you know, just cultivating this thing just for everybody, for future generations, for people that are nostalgic like me about it, and just kind of keeping it all together. So it's dope.
I'm still tripping on your shirt. The guy out next to Bob looks like Benny Urban. And then Daryl Mathis is on the right, and
Daryl,
I don't know what the
Daryl's
fuck is
in it.
going on with
Yeah.
this T-shirt, dude. Depeche Mode.
It's
Shout
in
out
that
to the
cup.
best
It's in that cup. Oh yeah.
Hey,
It's
thank
No,
you
they
guys
really
so
do. Does he not look like Benny Irving?
He does. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you
awesome.
guys next week. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Peace.